Honor, at this time, the state will call Sgt Michael McLaughlin. Sgt. McLaughlin, if you can remain standing there, and please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give is the whole truth under penalties of perjury?
I do.
May you lower your right hand and be seated? Sgt. McLaughlin, I'm going to ask, if you haven't already done so, if you can pull that microphone a little bit closer to you. Thanks
How's
so
that?
much. Sir, what is your current employment?
I'm employed, I'm a detective sergeant with New Hampshire State Police assigned to Troop C,
And how long have you been working with the New Hampshire State Police?
15 years.
How long have you been assigned to Troop C?
15 years.
Did you have law enforcement experience prior to joining the New Hampshire State Police?
I served in the military as a military policeman for 14 years.
As a sergeant with the New Hampshire State Police, what does that mean your responsibilities are?
So detective sergeant with the state police, I have 2 detectives assigned to me, so 3 of us total. We're assigned to Cheshire and Sullivan counties, responsible for the more serious crimes, burglaries, thefts, sex assaults, all the way up to and including homicide, assisting major crime.
When you say assisting major crime, what do you mean by major crime?
So major crime is basically what most agencies would call a homicide unit or homicide investigative unit.
And as part of your responsibilities as a detective sergeant with Troop C, or as a detective in general with Troop C, you assist the major crime unit if they need help with those kinds of investigations?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you have any kinds of training or experience that you utilize during your job with regard to conducting investigations?
Yes.
What kinds of training do you have?
So I have basic investigative trainings. I do have training in homicide specifically. On a death investigation specifically, I do have training in interview and interrogation. There's a lot more training and experience.
Let me ask you about that. You said that you had trainings with respect to interviews and interrogation. Are those two things interchangeable, or can you explain to us what the difference is between the two?
Sure. And this is more my definition based on my experience. But interview, I would say the person that is being interviewed would do the majority of the talking. Interrogation, on the other hand, would be the investigator would be doing most of the talking. Interrogation is more direct questions as opposed to an interview that would be open-ended questions, and the suspect would be given the opportunity to, or the interviewee would be given the opportunity to answer those questions.
Do you conduct interviews of suspects or interrogations?
Generally, or mostly interviews. Occasionally, it does turn into an interrogation.
Did there come a time when you became involved with an investigation that was being conducted by the Major Crime Unit into a homicide that occurred on February the 29th of 2024 in Berlin, New Hampshire?
Yes.
And I guess let me back up. Troop C, what areas of New Hampshire does that cover?
So it's Cheshire County and Sullivan County, so the southwest section of New Hampshire.
Where are the barracks for Troop C located?
Keene, New Hampshire.
Where in Keene?
15 Ashbrook Court, which is right off of Route 9.
How far from, let's say, the Applebee's in Keene is your troop barracks?
It's one intersection away. It's less than a mile.
What was your role in the investigation that you became a part of, the one that happened in Berlin?
So initially, I was the closest detective to a traffic stop that was ongoing. And then Eventually, I was assigned to conduct an interview with Mr. Duren.
Now, can you explain how it is that you actually did become involved? You said you were the closest detective. How did you become aware of this traffic stop that was occurring?
So before that, I was aware of the death investigation for two different ways. So I received text messages for all death investigations in the state. So I was aware that there was a death investigation in Berlin in the earlier morning hours. I also received an Amber Alert, which added to that. When I signed on for duty that morning, it was 7:30 that morning I signed on for duty. State Police has a computer dispatch program, and I'm able to see what's going on in the entire state. I did look to see what was going on in the Berlin case. But I was at the barracks. We monitor Keene Police Department's radio as well as Cheshire County's radio at the barracks. There was some commotion. It's in another room, so I didn't totally hear what the transmissions were. But at some point, my lieutenant popped his head into my office and said that the vehicle from the Amber Alert is at the Applebee's in Keene.
Once you heard that, what did you do?
My first reaction is, no, it's not. But after a few minutes, I decided it would probably be best, again, being the closest detective, to head over there and verify that, because I knew my phone would be ringing eventually with questions. So I drove to the Applebee's and ultimately verified that it was the correct vehicle.
Okay. And when you arrived at the Applebee's, what did you see? What was happening?
So there was a Keene police cruiser. I recognized the white Subaru from the Amber Alert, so I noticed that was parked. The Keene cruiser was not far behind it. There were several other Keene cruisers. A lot of officers and state troopers at that point, and some other people in the area. What I did was I spoke to the Keene officers, and my lieutenant was at the scene, determined that Mr. Duren was in the back of one of the cruisers, and just briefly introduced myself, expecting to have a further conversation with him later on that day.
Okay. When you say you introduced yourself, you approached Mr. Duren, and you indicated, did you introduce yourself, say who you were?
I did.
Okay. And did you ask him any questions at that point?
Basically, like, is he okay? Is there anything I can get him? Is he comfortable? And just said that he would most likely be coming to the Troop C barracks in Keene, and that we would have a lengthy conversation once he got there. What I do recall is the heat, and I felt it myself, but the heat inside the Keene cruiser was on very high, and Mr. Duren asked if I could have the Keene officer adjust that, which they did.
Now, you have looked several times towards a location in the courtroom when you say the name Mr. Duren or Duren. Do you see Mr. Duren, the person that you introduced yourself to that day here in this courtroom?
I do.
Could you, by pointing him out and or identifying him by an article of clothing that he's currently wearing, please let us know where he is?
Sure. He's seated right here almost directly in front of me, wearing a gray suit. We'll call it a purple shirt and a paisley purple tie.
Your Honor, identifying the defendant for the record.
The record shall so reflect.
Now, when you see the defendant here today in court, does he appear to you to be does he look the same as he did when you first met him?
He's got a haircut. His beard is a little shorter, but he does look the same.
Showing you what is marked for identification purposes is State's Exhibit 18 for this case. Can you take a look at that and let me know if you recognize it?
I do.
What is it?
It's a photograph of Mr. Duren.
Okay, and does that photograph clearly and accurately show Mr. Duren at the time that you met him on March the 1st of 2024?
Yes.
Right at this time, the state moves to strike the identification and admit State's Exhibit 18 as full.
No objection.
The ID shall be stricken and Exhibit 18 shall be considered a full exhibit.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Certainly.
For replacing, let me plug in first. publishing State's Exhibit 18 on the screen. That's how Mr. Duren appeared when you first encountered him?
Yes. Yes.
Now, you've described to us your first interaction with the defendant, how you introduced yourself to him and asked to get the heat turned down for him. Why is it that you went out to the scene and introduced yourself to him?
I would describe it as building rapport. Again, just making sure he was comfortable, and when we did get a chance to sit down and talk, I did essentially the same thing, but just make sure he's comfortable. If he needed to eat, we would get him some food. If he wanted something to drink, we would get him something to drink.
At the time that you met him at the Applebee's parking lot when he was in that cruiser, did you ask if he wanted any food?
I believe so.
Okay. Did at that time he ask for any?
For food, no.
Okay. How about for anything else?
I believe I told him that I make a good, strong cup of coffee, and we had a discussion about that, and eventually he did accept a cup of coffee.
Did you later make arrangements for him to be interviewed at Troop C?
Yes.
Can you describe for us the location inside of Troop C where that interview occurred?
So there's several entrances to Troop C, which had been renovated not long before this incident. There, to the far left of the building, there is a garage door, and just to the right of that is an entrance. Just inside that entrance to the right is an interview room.
When you say an interview room, can you describe for us sort of how large that is? What's in there?
So it's probably a 9-by-8 size room. It just has a round table with 3 chairs in one corner. In the opposite corner, it has a desk with an office chair and then a separate chair.
When you sat down to interview the defendant, Mr. Duren, who else was present, if anyone?
So Detective Horton, who works with me, eventually was present in the room as well.
This interview that you conducted of the defendant, Mr. Duren, was that audio and video recorded?
Yes.
Can you describe the manner in which that occurred?
Sure. So again, the barracks is newly renovated. We do not have an ideal recording system. So in this particular case, an audio recorder, just a handheld audio recorder, was placed in the room, and then I used my state-issued cell phone to video record the interview.
Was the defendant, or did the defendant consent to this interview being recorded?
He did.
Now, with respect to the interview itself, did you have any interruptions with respect to the recording?
One interruption was it's recording on my state cell or my cell phone. Not long into the interview, the cancellation of the Amber Alert, which is that loud, annoying sound that the cancellation of that came through the phone, which turned off the video recording.
Okay. So there may be a snag or a delay when the video is playing. Is
Yes.
that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. Now, have you reviewed the video and audio recording of this interview that you conducted with the defendant in preparation for your testimony today?
Yes,
Did you also review a copy of the transcript of that recording?
I did.
Showing you what's marked now for identification purposes only as State's Exhibit 27. Can you just take a quick look through that and let me know if you recognize it?
I do.
Okay, what is that?
This is a transcript of the audio recording.
Now, with respect to the transcript and the audio recording, did you review those together in order to determine if they were fully accurate?
I did.
Okay, and can you tell us if there are any errors in the transcription?
There are some.
How would you classify those errors?
So there are occasions where I'm speaking, but the text is attributed to Detective Horton. There are also some other where the audio might not be totally perfect. For example, I say the word Keene, referring to Keene Police or the city of Keene, and the transcription says Keith. There's one other that I can think of where we had a conversation about racking around in a pistol, and it says whacking instead of racking.
Okay, so like some word changes, but the video and audio is accurate to what was said. Is that
Yes.
fair to say? Okay. Now, after you were in the room and you had, and I'm gonna come grab that for you while I ask this question, but after you were in the room and you had your cell phone set up and the recording was going, did you talk to the defendant about his Miranda rights?
I did.
And can you explain for us what Miranda rights are?
So it's his rights to his right to speak to an attorney, his right to answer questions, his right to not answer questions, and just that he could stop answering questions at any time.
Fair to say that advisement we probably all heard on TV and Law and Order and all those other shows that just are everywhere?
Yes,
Okay. Now, when you conducted that procedure here, is it fair to say that you utilized a form?
I did.
Is that customary?
Yes. Doesn't have to be a form, but that's what I use.
Sergeant McLaughlin, I'm showing you what I've marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 25. Do you recognize that form?
I do.
What is it?
This is it's a State Police DSSP 105, New Hampshire State Police DSSP 105 form, which is a Miranda rights form.
Now, when you say DSSP 105, does every form within State Police sort of have a number assigned to it?
It does.
And that's where the DSSP 105 is?
Yes.
Okay. But this is a form that you utilize to go over Miranda?
Yes.
In this particular form, do you recognize it in terms of being the Miranda form or waiver form that you went over with this defendant, Mr. Duren?
I do.
And is that a fair and accurate copy of the form as you completed it with Mr. Duren?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state moves to strike the identification on States 25 and admit it into evidence as full.
No objection.
The ID may be stricken with respect to Exhibit 25, and it shall be considered a full exhibit.
Can you describe the process, and if you need the form back, let me know, but can you describe the process by which you provided Miranda to the defendant?
So I read each line. You know, for example, line 1 is you have the right to remain silent. Typically, I'll ask, in this case, I asked Mr. Duren, do you understand that right? He would say yes. I put a little check mark next to that, line 1. I would read line 2 and same thing. Then I do add a little bit where I explain if you start answering questions and you decide for any reason you don't like a question or you don't want to answer a question, we can skip a question and move on, which he said he understood. And then I asked him to, so I write yes next to, do you understand these rights? And I asked him to initial that after I handed the form to him. And then I asked the second question, which is, understanding these rights, are you willing to answer questions? He said yes. I wrote yes, asked him to initial that, and then sign the form, and then Detective Horton signed the form as a witness to Mr. Duren signing.
Now, by signing the form, is that the defendant indicating that he understood his rights as they were read to him and that he was willing to speak with you?
Yes.
Now, in addition to signing, and without telling us what, if anything, was said, did the defendant make statements to you during this interview that confirmed that he understood his rights?
Yes.
After the Miranda process, did you continue speaking with this defendant?
I did.
Can you describe the manner in which this interview was conducted in terms of interview versus interrogation and how it began?
So Mr. Duren was, I formed the opinion shortly after meeting him at, inside the Keene cruiser that he was ready to talk to someone about what had happened. And I would describe Mr. Duren as being very talkative that morning or afternoon. And he actually had some questions initially as well. And I had some questions that I was asked to ask about the children. So we started the conversation with basically answering Mr. Duren's questions.
Now, during the course of this interview, was the defendant again offered food and drink?
He had water and coffee before we started the interview, and think we got him a sandwich after we finished.
If he had asked for a sandwich earlier, would you have provided that?
Yes.
Was he allowed to take breaks or use the bathroom?
Yes. Yes and no, because he had used the bathroom before, and then we kind of gave him we asked about using the bathroom before we concluded, and Mr. Duren actually decided, let's get through the questions and then use the bathroom.
During this interview, while you were speaking with Mr. Duren, what kind of tone of voice did you use?
Pretty much what I'm using right now. Just normal, my normal self.
And what about Detective Horton? What kind of voice did he use?
Detective Horton is a little louder in general. He just speaks very loudly, but his normal voice.
Did anybody yell or scream at the defendant?
No.
Did at any point you use aggressive body language or aggressive gestures?
I don't believe so, no.
At any point was your service weapon involved?
No.
Now, who spoke more during this conversation, yourself or the defendant?
The defendant.
And who led the conversation, yourself or the defendant?
The defendant, but I tried very hard not to interrupt, but there were times where we had to kind of get the conversation back on track.
Now, following the interview of the defendant, was there a search warrant process that was conducted?
Yes.
Can you explain the purpose of that process?
So it's a search warrant, we call it a body warrant, so there's a collection of a number of evidence. The photo that is still on the screen, so there's a number of photographs taken to document injuries or the lack of injuries. Oops, I guess I'm not supposed to talk about that.
No, that's all right.
So we take some photos to document injuries, non-injuries, any evidence that might be on Mr. Duren at the time. There's swabs for different things. So a DNA swab would be basically a Q-tip that goes inside of his mouth to collect cells from inside of his cheek. There would be typically gunshot residue swab to his hands. There would be fingerprints, sometimes a collection of fingernails, sometimes a collection of hair, and essentially in the collection of his clothing.
Is that customary to every homicide investigation that you've worked?
Yes.
Now, in addition to collecting items from his physical person, were items of his personal property recovered?
I believe there were some items from the vehicle and some items from his person. I believe his wallet was one of those things.
Okay. Was his clothing also recovered?
His clothing was collected, yes.
And was a cellular phone recovered?
I believe so.
You indicated that his wallet and identification cards were recovered?
Yes.
Sergeant McLaughlin, I'm showing you what is marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 31 in this case. Do you recognize what that is?
I do.
What is it?
It's a temporary New Hampshire driver's license.
Okay, is that a particular person's driver's license?
It's Mr. Duren's.
Okay, and was that recovered from him during this search process?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would seek to strike the ID and admit State's Exhibit 31 into evidence.
No objection.
The ID may be stricken with respect to Exhibit 31, and shall be considered a full exhibit.
Permission to publish.
Certainly.
Sergeant McLaughlin, I've placed State's Exhibit 31 up on the screen. You still have a copy with you. You also have a screen to look at. Does
May we approach?
All set?
Sergeant McLaughlin,
All
with
set,
res-
excuse me, all
I
set,
apologize.
Counsel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sergeant McLaughlin, with respect to State's Exhibit 31, which is on the screen, on all the screens, as well as in front of you, Does that driver's license indicate what Mr. Duren's height and weight are?
It does.
And what were those?
His height is 5'10", and his weight is 190 pounds.
Sergeant McLaughlin, before we publish or talk about further or show or ask to admit the recording of the interview that you conducted, I have a few questions for you. During the time that the defendant was speaking with you, did he admit to you that he had shot and killed Caitlyn Naffziger?
Yes.
Did he tell you what hand he had used to fire the gun?
Yes.
Which hand?
His right hand.
Did you ask the defendant whether Caitlyn was threatening to harm either him or their daughter at the time that he shot?
Yes.
What did he say?
No.
Did the defendant explain to you whether his action in shooting Caitlyn was done deliberately?
He said it was deliberate, yes.
Is it fair to say that the defendant told you that Caitlyn had crossed a line?
Yes.
Did he describe where Caitlyn was physically located when he shot her?
Yes.
What did he say?
She was seated on a couch.
Did he tell you where on her body he had shot Caitlyn Naffziger?
Yes.
What did he say?
Her head.
Sergeant McLaughlin, did he describe to you the path of travel that the bullet took?
Yes.
If you recall, what did he say?
In one side and out the other, essentially.
Is it fair to say that he said it went straight through?
Yes.
Did the defendant tell you where his daughter Elowyn was physically located when he fired the shot that killed Caitlyn Naffziger?
Yes.
Where was Elowyn located?
He had pulled Elowyn away from Caitlyn and was holding her.
So at the time that the defendant fired the shot, he was holding Elowyn.
Yes, my understanding.
Did he describe how Elowyn reacted to the gunshot?
He described trying to shield her from seeing anything, and that Elowyn kind of put her hands over her ears and said, ouch loud, or out, something loud.
Did the defendant tell you what his mindset was after he shot and killed Caitlyn?
He did.
What did he say?
He said that he knew that he was screwed, and that he performed well in stressful situations, and then he talked about wanting to spend time with the kids before he wanted to turn himself in or have to be at the police station.
And very clear, did the defendant turn himself in this instance?
He did not.
Sergeant McLaughlin, I'm showing you what is marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibits 26A and B. Can you take a look at those items?
Yes,
Do you recognize them?
I do.
What are they?
They are video recordings of the interview with Mr. Duren.
Okay. And have you reviewed these specific discs, 26A and B?
I have.
And do they contain the full contents of the interview?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would ask to strike the ID as to these items and admit them as full.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes. To the jury, I have some things I do have to discuss with the attorneys at this point in time, and so at this point, we will take another mid-morning break. I think it will probably be 10 minutes. That's my best estimate, but don't hold me to that. And please do not discuss the case amongst yourselves, and we will be back as soon as we can. All rise. Okay, so, ready to proceed?
Yes, can I ask the witness to step down, at least initially, so we can just speak
Please.
here?
Thanks. Okay, we're still on the record. First thing I want to confirm on the record is that my assumption is, I haven't asked this yet, but I'd like to do it for purposes of the record, Attorney Duren, that the video that you're proffering does contain redactions consistent with my order issued on October 10th?
It does, Your Honor. It also contains them consistent with the transcript that defense counsel utilized in requesting those redactions.
Okay, understood. And as part of, because I have not viewed the video as part of the state's foundation, I think it's fair to just explain to the jury that there have been some redactions, and so if they see any skips, not to, I can certainly make an instruction to the jury that they are not to read anything into the skips. I can do that if anyone wishes, or I can just let it play. I can argue it either way. But we'll take that up when it comes. Attorney Kettles, with respect to the specific page, I do have the transcript in front of me.
Yes, Judge, I'd also like to have marked defense, or ID, defense C. I think it might be useful for this discussion.
Okay.
This is a corrected transcript that was provided by the state. It's Bates 1747. And on page 87,
87 original numbering.
87 original numbering, so that's Bates 1833, line 15. It says, just to tighten that up, it has the same quote I referenced earlier. Mr. Duren, could it be that I'm endangering Elwyn by what I did? And I would very much say no. And just from that, even just my training, Sgt McLaughlin. Yeah, just to kind of tighten that up a little bit more. You're an expert marksman of some sort in competition, so it's fair to say you weren't endangering Evelyn. So the corrected transcript provided by the state, Bates 1833, on the transcript itself, page 87, lines 8 through 15, makes it clear that the question that was asked of Mr. Duren by Sgt McLaughlin was, it's fair to say you weren't endangering Elwyn, to which Mr. Duren responds, yes. My review of the subtitles on the CD that the state submitted is that it says, it's fair to say you were endangering Elwyn. Answer, yes. So I think the context of the statement immediately before, as well as the corrected transcript, which I'm going to hand to the monitor to mark for ID, makes it clear that the subtitles the state has are incorrect on a core issue as to the charge of endangering the welfare of a minor, which is whether or not Mr. Duren said he knew he was endangering Elwyn. In fact, he said he knew he wasn't endangering Elwyn. And my concern is just, given that we know we have a transcript with errors, the detective testified that it has errors. I found one that is very substantive. We don't know that the rest of the subtitles will be accurate, and rather than have something be admitted, even if they were to submit an updated version that removed the error, I think that the jury should be allowed to hear the best evidence, hear the video itself, and decide for themselves what it contains. This is why we raised the issue generally previously. We have a specific and very substantive example now, and we have the witness's testimony that the transcript contains multiple errors. So to use the subtitles, it's I think improper. The best evidence is the video. We need to make sure the jury gets accurate evidence as to core issues.
Your Honor, if I can just have one moment so that I can lay out for the court exactly the way that this has happened, because defense counsel utilized in their motion filed in, I think, September at this point, around the 25th, with respect to redactions for the transcript, they chose to utilize the original transcript that was provided. The state followed along with what defense was choosing to do. At the motions hearing on October 7th, defense counsel ostensibly derided the fact that the state had corrected the transcript, indicating that we had tried to correct it. And they chose which transcript to utilize. They have waited until today, despite the fact that they received these videos, knew exactly what transcript was being utilized because it was subject to the court order made on their motion. They waited until today to raise this issue, despite the fact that they have had these videos with the transcript attached since Friday the 17th, which is only 10 days, actually less than 10 days after the court ruled on the redactions. They were provided with them, they have had them, they have known that today was coming. They did not raise this yesterday when no one was sitting in court. They have waited, and this is a strategic choice that they have made. At no time did the state choose which transcript to utilize. We, in fact, asked the detective to make sure it was accurate. Defense counsel complained that we corrected it. They didn't use it in their filing on September the 25th. They didn't argue it at the motions hearing on October 7th. They didn't ask the court to review it. With respect to the corrected transcript, they have had this for well over, and I'm trying to find the date, well over 6 months. This is not a surprise. There's been no effort to surprise defense. This has all been their choice. This court will advise the jury that the audio of the transcript in the interview, much as I said to the detective, the audio is the evidence. This court, I am sure, will advise this jury that the audio is the evidence and that any difference between the audio and the transcript is for them to decide. Your Honor, this is a strategic choice for the defense trying to gain an advantage. And the state objects to this entire process, but would indicate that this court has ruled on the defendant's request, has utilized the transcript the defense has requested, as has the state. And as such, the state believes this should be admitted, it should be played, and the court can give a limiting instruction.
Your Honor, we're neither accusing the state of doing this on purpose, nor is this an attempt to gain a strategic advantage. When the state opened on the quote, "You knew you were endangering Elwyn," and the answer yes, that drew to the defense's attention that there was an error or discrepancy in what we believed the video showed. We did not know whether the state intended to introduce the video. In all of its pleadings, it said very clearly, and in email communication with us, we're not saying we're going to introduce these statements, but if we do, then here's what we'd like to discuss. The court's order said that any issues with the transcript, I believe the court's order said should be addressed at the time that the state seeks to admit the subtitles. And so again, the timing is not any kind of strategery here, nor are we saying that there was any purpose on the state's part. I'll note that it was the exhibit was produced less than a week ago. As the court knows, it's over a 2-hour interview, a 100-page transcript, and to note differences between different versions of transcripts when there's so many in such voluminous discovery. We learned of it when we learned of it, which is after.
Your Honor, the defense was provided with 2 copies of this transcript. An original copy, which was provided, I believe, in March of 2024 or April. The video itself was provided in March. The corrected transcript, I was in error. It wasn't 6 months ago. It was 11 months ago. Defense counsel has had this. They've had experience with this. It's 2 transcripts, Your Honor. We're not talking about multiple transcripts. We're talking about 2. Of total, the state provided 4 transcripts. 2 originals, 2 corrected. One of them is not at play here. One of them does not involve this defendant.
Attorney Duren, doesn't the issue fall within the scope of the limiting instruction that you've already asked as part of the
Yes.
motion to use transcript?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. For purposes of the record, I'm just going to briefly indicate that the court had indicated that it would allow the state to back up a step. There are redactions to the statement which the court has ruled upon. Some redactions that were requested some redactions were made by agreement of the parties. Some redactions were requested by the defendant, and the state objected, and I issued rulings with respect to those redactions. So that's the starting place. The next step is with respect to the transcript itself. The state requested the ability to use the transcript as part of the proceeding. My ruling was that I believed that the use of the transcript would assist the jury in perceiving the evidence. Specifically, when the state asked to use the transcript as part of the trial, my ruling of October 17th indicates granted with respect to the relief requested and as to the state's proposed use set forth in paragraph 6B, which is a simultaneous playing of the video and the transcript, and to use the vernacular, it would be similar to subtitles, like pressing closed caption on most modern TV technology. Well, that's not part of my order, that's my comment. The court deems a one-time use of the subtitles to be an acceptable aid to jury's understanding and comprehension of the evidence being presented. Exact wording of the limiting instruction may be modified after consultation with counsel at the time that the video is played. In my perception and observation and ruling is that's what's happening right now. The proffered use of the video with simultaneous subtitles will only occur once during presentation of evidence and not during openings or closings, parentheses, to reduce any potential cumulative effect, close parentheses, and such version, meaning the version with subtitles, will not be allowed as an exhibit for the jury's consideration during deliberations. That was my pretrial ruling of 6 days ago. As part of granting the state's motion, the state had proffered a limiting instruction, which is currently on page 5 of the state's pleading dated October 14th, which at the top of the page I will read that limiting instruction proposed by the state. Members of the jury, comma, Exhibit X, and X is just a placeholder for what is now Exhibit 26B, am I correct? Exhibit 26B, a recording will now be played. A transcript of that recording will be visible on the screen below the video recording. The transcript is not evidence. The transcript is intended only as an aid to help you as you listen to the recording. Therefore, you may only consider what you hear and understand the contents of the recording to be. That means if you perceive a difference between the recording and the transcript, you must rely on the recording. I believe that Attorney Kettles has noted her observation of a difference in perspective as to what is said at the specific time. And as far as I'm concerned, that difference of a perception falls within the scope of the limiting instruction, and that, again, I believe the court's limiting instruction says if you perceive a difference between the recording and the transcript, you must rely upon the recording. I think that's fair commentary or cross-examination for Attorney Kettles to bring up as part of the playing of the video during a cross-examination of this particular witness, as well as any other comments, if there's any other perception as to any difference of opinion between the transcript and the perception of what is occurring on the video, that's fair commentary. I would also note that my pretrial ruling, again, was that the transcript itself would not be going into the evidence room, nor would the video which contains the subtitles, that the video with the subtitles will be played once, and that version of the video will not be going into the jury deliberation room, nor will a physical transcript. So I understand the concerns raised by the defense. I think they're well-founded concerns based upon, I haven't heard the video. So I'm making no preliminary finding of fact as to whether what Attorney Kettles says is accurate or inaccurate, but as an officer of the court whose credibility I don't question, if she says that there's a perception difference, I take her at her word for that. And so I think it's fair for her to argue that. I don't think it changes my ruling, and it doesn't change the limiting instruction, because this is exactly what I highlighted when I made my ruling on October 17th as it relates to the redactions, as it relates to the issue of the transcript. So as far as my ruling is concerned, it doesn't change my perception doesn't change my ruling as it relates to the playing of the video with the subtitles, and the limiting instruction will be granted, will be read to the jury. I think the limiting instruction is very important, and I think any perception between what is played on the video and the version of the transcript can be addressed as part of cross-examination. Attorney Kettles.
Just a couple more notes. I'll note that I don't think either party recognized this discrepancy, because I don't think the state would have opened with evidence that it knew to be incorrect. So the corrected transcript is one that I believe has been adopted by Sgt McLaughlin. I don't believe the court or the state can allow evidence that is incorrect, that is false, to go to the jury. And so I believe that it would be appropriate to voir dire Detective McLaughlin about what he said. And if in fact he said fair to, you know, it wasn't, apologize. So it's fair to say you know you weren't endangering Elowen, then either the jury should not be allowed to read evidence that is false, which is an incorrect subtitle, or the limiting instruction should be included, updated to say, there is an error in the subtitle. The actual correct statement is fair to say you weren't endangering Elowen. I think we have an issue here where what the state provided as the corrected, the correct, the accurate statement is different than the evidence it seeks to admit.
I understand, and your reference to not allowing the evidence, your reference to that relates to the playing of it in real time, not opposed to anything going in the room, because I've already ruled the transcript's not going.
That's correct. It goes to the jury seeing false evidence.
Understood.
And so I would ask that we be able to voir dire Detective McLaughlin about what he believes he asked, and cross-examine him with the corrected transcript, so that if he does in fact say, it's fair to say you weren't endangering Elowen, the jury is not getting false
Understood.
evidence.
Understood, and that they can be instructed so before the playing of the video.
Yes.
And Your Honor, I'm not sure what counsel is referring to as voir diring him, but they have adequate rights to cross-examination. The state has not done its examination of Sergeant McLaughlin, and as the court has already ruled, this transcript is not evidence. It's not going in. It's not staying with them. They're going to be told that the playing of the statement is the evidence.
Judge, it's going to be played for the jury to say that things that don't go in are not evidence is akin to saying that testimony is not evidence. The state is now seeking to admit this evidence. It has an obligation to ensure it is not admitting evidence that is false. And so by voir dire, I simply mean question outside the presence of the jury so that the court can make an informed ruling and not allow the jury to hear false evidence.
I don't think it's false evidence I understand the concern, Attorney Kittles. I don't think it's false evidence as it relates to the playing of the video, when I'm also simultaneously instructing them that if there is a discrepancy, they are to consider the sound on the video as being primary and the transcript as being secondary. I will certainly entertain an instruction that indicates that I have been made aware, that the court has been made aware of an additional discrepancy, which will be an additional discrepancy between the transcript, between the subtitle and what you hear, and that will be addressed by counsel during their examination of the witness. And I think that's fair commentary. I think that's fair commentary that protects the defendant's rights consistent with my prior rulings. Attorney Duren, any position on what I just said?
No, Your Honor.
Again, the limiting instruction that has been proffered stresses that the audio is primary, and I'm willing to supplement the instruction with a specific reference. I think that the best way to handle it is for me to tell them that. They will realize that something that they're going to hear may be different than the subtitle, and then that can be addressed as part of cross-examination.
Maintaining our continuing objection, Your Honor, just one additional point, which is that I don't believe that the exhibit with the subtitle should be a full exhibit because it's not going back to the jury. I think it should remain as ID.
The only reason it's being offered, Your Honor, as an exhibit for evidence purposes is so that it can be played. If it's ID only, it technically cannot be played, but it certainly can be withheld from the jury's deliberations.
Correct. I mean, the perception, I want to make sure I have the right exhibit numbers. With subtitles redacted, 26A will continue to be, 26A has been identified. 26A will continue to be considered ID. 26B, 26B is the one which has been agreed as a full exhibit. Am I correct?
Yes, Judge.
And so 26B will be allowed into the jury room. 26A will not be allowed into the jury room. again, that is only with respect to a one-time viewing by the state, one-time production, excuse me, playing by the state. If defense wants to play it further as part of cross-examination, they are certainly entitled to do so. My instruction to the state was that it would be a one-time playing. Defendant's continuing objection relative to the issue is noted with respect to the transcript and the subtitles. Again, my ruling is that the transcript and the subtitles themselves are not going into the jury deliberation room whatsoever.
Your Honor, I don't know if it's worth mentioning right now, but this is a 2-hour video. I don't know what the court wants to do in terms of starting it and then breaking it in the middle for lunch, or how the court wants to handle scheduling of it. I think it's 2 hours, 6 minutes and some change.
I wasn't sure, I wasn't aware of how long it was. I know it was lengthy, and I have reviewed the transcript many times, but I wasn't sure how long it was. Counsel's preference relative to the,
I think a preference to start now, go for an hour, take a break. I think that will ensure we have full attention. It can be difficult to pay full attention to a 2-hour video.
okay, given the current time, I'm inclined to stop at 12:30, Attorney Duren, but I don't know where in that process, where we will be. But what we'll do is, based upon the defendant's position as just articulated by Attorney Kettles, what we'll do is we'll start the video at some point between 12:10 and 12:30. At some point in that range, Attorney Duren, whatever works for you from your presentation, we'll stop there, and I will have a full hour for lunch. Okay, so once again, I'm going to, my ruling is that the state can play the video with the subtitles. I'm going to be providing a limiting instruction as follows. Excuse me. Members of the jury, Exhibit 26B, a recording will now be played. A transcript of that recording will be visible on the screen below the video recording. The transcript is not evidence. I'm going to use the word subtitles. The subtitles are not evidence. The subtitles are intended only as an aid to help you as you listen to the recording. Therefore, you may only consider what you hear and understand the contents of the recording to be. That means if you perceive a difference between the recording and the subtitles, you must rely on the recording. Further, the court has been made aware of another potential discrepancy between the audio and the subtitles. The discrepancy will be addressed during cross-examination. Again, you are to consider the audio you hear to be the primary source of the information you are to consider. Understanding the defendant's objection to the process, any issue with that specific limiting instruction?
Just the
Continuing objection noted.
previously raised.
Okay, Attorney Duren, any issue with that?
There you are.
It's 11:23. 11:23 we'll suspend right now and be back at 11:30 to resume. So a regular break from now, 11:30, excuse me, 11:23 to 11:30. We'll resume. First, I'm going to go back to the marking, the exhibit. identification and striking.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Sergeant, you're still under oath? You're still under oath?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Attorney Duren, my understanding is that you were submitting the exhibit for admission?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the state would move to strike the ID off of State's Exhibits 26A and 26B and move to admit them as full.
And
And Judge, in addition to the prior discussion, I would just note that no objection to the non-cited title version being admitted as full.
so the ID may be stricken with respect to 26B from defense perspective?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, the ID shall be stricken with respect to Exhibit 26B, and I'm denying the state's request with respect to 26A as it relates to the inclusion as a full exhibit, but not for purposes of presentation.
Now, Sergeant McLaughlin, before we continue with respect to this, I just wanted to ask you a couple more questions. Do you recall at what point you conducted a review of the transcript that you saw, State's Exhibit 27? At what point you conducted that review in order to determine if there were any typographical or other errors inside of the transcript?
I'd say it was over a year ago,
Okay.
close to a year ago.
And have you been able to look at your corrected version next to the version that was the original that you reviewed?
Briefly.
For lack of a better way to ask that question. I'm going to ask you to take a look at State's Exhibit 32, which I've marked for identification purposes. Now, these are bait stamped pages. What's another? Try that again, Sergeant McLaughlin. I'm going to approach and show you what I've marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 32 for the record, bait stamp pages 1747 through 1919. Can you take a look at State's Exhibit 32 and tell me if you recognize it? You're welcome to take it down and walk through it if you need.
I recognize it as a transcribed portion of the audio recording.
Okay. And if you look at that exhibit in conjunction with State's 27, which you also have, can you take a look to see if there have been any corrections made? And maybe in order to assist you, I'll direct you to a specific page. If you can look at page 89 of both of those exhibits, and that would be the 89 at the top of the page, not the bait stamp number. I believe with respect to State's 27, that would be bait stamp number 478, and I cannot tell you with respect to the other at this time.
89 on both copies.
Yes. So beginning at the bottom of page 89 and And moving into page 90, I apologize.
Okay.
Are there any corrections that you made on that page? If the answer is no, that's fine.
It looks like it's the same. At the bottom?
Okay, so no corrections?
Not that I'm seeing.
Perfect. Can you move to page 87 in both documents?
87, backwards?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to draw your attention, which should be the middle of the page. Do you see any corrections to page 87 that show that there was an error in the original transcript?
In the middle of the page, I'm not seeing anything.
Okay. May I approach?
Certainly.
Going to point you to lines 12 to 17, if you can read through those sections, and let me know if there is a difference in between those lines, between lines 12 and 17 on page 87.
Okay, yes, I see it now.
Okay, is there a place in the original transcript, not the one that you reviewed, where the person who listened to the audio heard, what did the person on the audio hear? Go ahead and tell us.
So there's, in one copy, it says the word were, and in the other copy is the word weren't.
Okay, and is the word were correct or the word weren't?
The correction I made was weren't.
Okay, and you based that correction on listening to the audio, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, you had been present, you heard the audio, and you looked at the transcript and saw that it was an error.
yes,
Okay, so the audio with respect to the statement that you took of the defendant, in that audio, does the defendant tell you that he knew that he was endangering his daughter at the time? Did you ask him that?
I did,
You asked him if he was endangering his daughter when he fired the shot, correct?
correct.
What was the defendant's response?
So I asked him if he, so I'm not reading this, correct?
Tell us from your recollection.
Okay. So I asked him if Elwin was in danger when he fired the gun.
And what was his answer?
So I asked, I actually, I have to read this, I think, because I asked, it's fair to say you weren't endangering Elwin, and he said yes.
Okay.
So it's fair to say that he wasn't endangering Elwin.
Okay, but the transcript that is the original transcript to this audio, the word weren't came across as the word were, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, but in all cases, just like you did, anyone listening to the audio should take the audio as the evidence, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would, pursuant with all the orders of this court and the court's indication, publish State's Exhibit 26A for the jury.
Okay. Members of the jury, Exhibit 26A, a recording will now be played. Subtitles for that recording will be visible on the screen below the video recording. The subtitles are not evidence. The subtitles are intended only as an aid to help you as you listen to the recording. Therefore, you may only consider what you hear and understand the contents of the recording to be. That means if you perceive a difference between the recording and the subtitles, you must rely on the recording. The court has been made aware of a potential discrepancy between the audio and the subtitles. The discrepancy may be addressed during cross-examination. Again, you are to consider the audio you hear to be the primary source of the information you are to consider. Thank you.
There should be audio playing. My computer just turned it back on to mute. Hopefully that's not what it is. Your Honor, at this time, publishing State's Exhibit 26A. And one more question, Sergeant McLaughlin, before I go. I think we already asked you this, but because it's been a little bit, how long was the interview that you conducted with the defendant?
It's over 2 hours.
Okay, approximately 2 hours and 6 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
And based upon that answer, I'm going to tell the jury we will be taking a break for lunch during the viewing of the video.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Certainly.
Yes. Short answer, yes. Long answer, let me do this part first. And then I'll tell you who. So we'll start kind of like your priority, because we're going to try to answer your best questions best, because I know it's going to be gazillion things they want to make. And then we'll kind of talk about here. Before we do anything else, water, coffee, good? So I'm going to read you the argument.
Your Honor, approach.
Okay, members of the jury, it's my understanding that the audio is at the maximum level. Can you hear? Can the jury members hear? Let the record reflect that they're nodding yes. And the audio will stay up as much as it can during the entire time.
Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. You understand that? You have a right to talk to a lawyer for advice before a question, and to have one with you during a question. You understand that? Yes. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you. You understand that? Yes. And if you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you still have the right to stop asking questions at any time. You understand that? Yes. And I kind of add a little bit to that on my own. If you decide to start talking to us and answering questions, and I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, but you kind of want to continue talking to us, just say, I don't want to answer that question. Fair enough. And then we can move on to it. Do you understand ancient threats? Yes. You're right, yes, next to this. And that's information in a second. And understanding these rights, are you willing to answer a question? Yes. Remember, yes, next to that. So, yes. And then Minnesota originally, right?
Originally, yes.
In New Hampshire, DCF is like Department of Children, Youth, and Families. So they're kind of like CDS, whatever it is in Minnesota, Child Protection Services. So that at this point, they kind of like review everything. They actually have some questions that I want to ask you too, just about myself and the environment and stuff like that. But they kind of step in because of what's going on. And then they always try to get the girls to some kind of, whether it's family in Minnesota or family here in New Hampshire. Brenda is probably the closest I would assume. So she's kind of in contact or in contact with us. So that's kind of like plan A at this point, assuming DCOF is okay with everything. It sounds like Brenda will be kind of agree with what's the chief about. Is that a good option for now?
For now, I guess how this goes, can I just ask questions whenever? Does that matter?
As we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm very easy, as you probably figured out.
Well, I was gonna ask, I guess, did someone contact the police
Third.
about how it happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Say who?
Well, yeah. So what happened was at like 4 a.m. this morning, I like hammer order on the statewide, it will be up at 4 a.m. And that's something we saw here.
No, I meant,
The Berlin.
how did police know anything even happened?
Yeah, they don't know. The Berlin police went to the house apartment, and that's, from there, I don't know how they got home. I don't know, other neighbors.
Well,
But I mean,
yeah, I was asking for a reason, but
yeah, I don't know.
I guess I'll say, for just family, kind of one of the things was I want to make sure that my mom was aware. And that was my preference, so I just wanted to make sure that my mom knew that the kids were here in Keene.
Where's your mom?
She's amazing.
It's 2024, I couldn't tell you phone number off the top of my head. Do you know your last one? Is it in your phone?
It's in my phone, yeah.
Where is your phone?
They took it.
Keene.
Yeah,
Sorry.
at the scene.
What's your mom's name?
Deborah.
D-E-O-R-A-H?
D-E-B-R-A.
Same last name? So, do the kids have a primary care in New Hampshire? Yeah.
No, I was supposed to have a phone call today.
What hospital? Or where?
Because, well, we'll probably get into this, because I'm assuming you're gonna want, like, an entire walkthrough. We lived in Nevada before here.
Nevada, Minnesota, Nevada, and New Hampshire.
So Minnesota, well, Minnesota was never really in the picture. I've been in Nevada, I mean, it's in the picture, I guess, I should say. We've been in Nevada for the past, well, she was in Nevada, and, well, all of us were in Nevada for the past 4 to 5 years. But I lived there before that.
Okay.
And then, I guess we can get into more of the details, but anyways, the kids had Medicaid there. And so what I was doing here was trying to do I guess.
I'm sure they've eaten by now. And I offer you food, but you
Yeah,
don't
and
want
they ate, yeah, I mean, they had been eating, this was more so, I mean, probably go into more detail on it, but, because I was actually already in New York, but I turned around because I didn't want to, I ended up deciding that I wanted to, like, surrender here in Hampshire. And then, yeah, then I thought I'll try to eat breakfast. And I was actually really hungry
to.
somehow. And I didn't notice when I tried to do Keene, I was like, I saw the Chili's, and then I saw the police department right there, and I was like, oh yeah, if I go to Chili's, everybody would be sitting right there. My hope was that what I wanted to do, in which I will say, everything was very professional. So, I'm very appreciative of that. Because I just didn't want to get caught like what happened, because I didn't want anything crazy to happen to the kids there. Like,
Or witness that.
I wanted to kind of walk in and be like, hey, here's the kids, like, please take the kids.
That worked out okay, I guess.
I guess, I mean, obviously my biggest thing is that I didn't actually, like, well, we get to sit down and eat, but, like, I had to, whatever, say, yeah, I was like, let's just,
So you know a lot more about what's going on in the last day or two than I do. I'm saying that because I'm probably gonna ask you a lot of stupid questions that you would assume I would already know. But that's not.
So I'm just turning this back on because the cancellation of the Amber Alert actually just turned off my recorder. Just back on that. Yeah, so that's kind of like that. That's what I woke up to at 4 in the morning. So I don't know if you saw it. It's just something that, in this case, actually, is very useful. Really safe, right? So I apologize for that. But we'll get to the way control that. So we started to kind of talk a little bit, and I was saying that I'm going to ask you some questions that you probably you should know this already, or no questions. My day kind of changed a little bit after COVID happens. But I was going to ask, both Elowen and Veilen are your daughters, but also Keaton's daughters. Keaton's daughters. So that was one question. When did you move to Keene?
so I got here, 23rd.
Did you take a major
And specifically, it's just because that's what works for the budget. When I was working, I got, basically, I got hooked up with the police. And that's just what went out. I don't know if you're gonna want to hold me up, like, I don't know how.
whatever works for you, whatever works for you.
Because, Caitlyn, because we had been in that, obviously, I obviously, was being, so,
That's a very good thing. Why don't we start with moving to Hampshire?
so, a couple of years ago, she had been talking about how she didn't want to be in that. And I actually gave up, I really had to visit. But, I said, what I said, was saying, okay, then where do we, like, it's me on what place So this got brought up and kind of immediately started catching my attention. And then, like, as we were kind of exploring, several different states where I go to that kind of became energy. And then, from there on, it's a little bit of tangent, but if you want, I'm sure it's good. So then we had agreed, okay, to Hampshire. And then, so we got fully prepared. This was, so our lease was up in Nevada on July or August of just this past year, 23. And so the lease was up. We started getting pods shipped to get over stuff to Hampshire. Then she decided, without telling me, that she ordered her own pods and then got our stuff and shipped them to me. And so I guess, because I guess I should say, I should be clear on this, that prior to that happening, of her ordering her own pods, she took pretty much like 90% of the floor, so she was, so prior to that happening, like, we had problems, but that was like legitimately the first time I yelled at her.
Two different pages.
So, like, even if we had issues, it was, I'm very big on, I've always been very strong on their family, raising kids. So with all problems, I was trying to just say, okay, like, it doesn't matter. I just suck up my pride, and it's for the kids. So this is not anything new. But anyways, that happened to where, so all of our stuff went to Minnesota, and I obviously, the plan was to go to New Hampshire, and that was without her saying anything. The moment I knew was when the pods, like, were actually there. And that was when I confirmed about this. And then, shortly after, she took our 1-year-old, without me knowing. She didn't say anything. She took the stroller, and she was going to the park that was nearby. Which was for the kids. And so she took the stroller and just left when she walked in the park. I didn't think too much of it. But then it was like several hours later and they hadn't returned. And so I got into the park and they weren't there. And then I was trying to call and be like, what is going on? And she was at the airport already taking her home and bringing to Minnesota. And I ended up like driving to the airport, trying to be like, yo, what is going on? And I called like my parents, I called her parents. And this would be a common thing in conversations, but I've always tried to stay very, I tried to keep everyone informed, so like my family and her family. So when that happened, I talked to my parents, I talked to her parents, and like, what is going on? I regret not just staying in Nevada. I know that was my first mistake, because if I just stayed in Nevada and had been talking to our family lawyers, twice a week, I just drive. I guess that's all the funny time, but I was in the northern area of Minnesota, and she was in Minnesota. But twice a week, I was fine, driving down, dropping off the kids, just trying to drive off. So we had a setup that is manageable. And then once the time came, I drove out here, so that was the thing that I wanted to just part of the agreement was, that I was gonna drive out with Ellen, which is Saturday, my girlfriend, and I was gonna go somewhere with Ellen. And she was fantastic, but I was not worried about it, but she was fantastic, it was amazing, so. I felt more confident. So it was that weekend, I don't remember the exact days, but it was the weekend after January 17th. So anyways, that's when I took Ellen, I got out, she was in Hampshire. You say it's something that's all right, right, his family. So yeah, the drive was great, got to Hampshire, got the spot, secured. So we got to be here the 23rd, so I said that in Hampshire, like, North American, so, yeah, pretty sure.
Your Honor, noting the time is 12:15, and this might be a good place to stop.
Okay. All right, so we will continue with the playing of the video after the lunch break. We'll suspend here for the lunch break. Members of the jury, once again, please do not discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Please conduct no research or transmit any information about the case to anyone else. And again, if you do run into anybody at any place in Lancaster during the lunch break, please don't take offense if they don't speak to you at all. We will resume at 1:15. Okay, thank you.
All right. Remain standing, Your Honor, jury.
Hey, good afternoon, thank you. Please be seated.
Your Honor, for the record, the state will resume playing State's Exhibit 26A for presentation purposes.
Thank you.
The plan for her was to fly out with our 1-year-old. But this is part of the beginning of the issues, is that she was running into all sorts of money problems, and I definitely did not have a good income. I mean, I was basically pretty much fully, I get VA disability, and I'm basically fully working off of my VA disability. And so I didn't have money, especially with the move, which I have a spreadsheet of all of my finances, including the total cost of the move, and it was almost $5,000. And that includes the first rent and the security deposit. But anyways, I had to go further in debt just to get that move going. But then I felt like, oh, okay, obviously once she kept asking for more and more money. And I actually, this started when we were in Minnesota too. She kept asking for money. Right away, this would have been like August or September, I don't remember. But right away, she wanted $2,000 a month from me, in which there's no chance that I could have done that at the time.
Which is it, there's a,
Yes. Because again, so basically from July, August, till now, basically, I had like a few $100 more, but I was basically living fully off of VA disability. And so obviously, 2,000 a month, that's, yeah, there's no chance I could have done that. But she just like kept threatening, well, okay, I'm gonna take the kids away and none of that. And so I tried, basically, to like placate her, I was sending her like whatever I could. So I remember like right away when she sent me, or when she was yelling at me about sending 2,000 every month to her, that, because again, there's no chance I could do that. But I ended up sending her 500, and then just every month, it was basically the same things of her wanting more money with threats of taking the kids away. And I couldn't do that. And there was a few times like I was sending, I don't remember the exact amounts, but I'm sure they can be looked up, but I would send like $100 one month or like $200 another month. And, anyways, so I guess, yeah, I forgot because I went on a tangent. I do that a lot. But
you could,
because because what were we talking about? The New Hampshire?
yep, you had moved to New Hampshire on January 23rd. She began asking for $2,000 a month and then threatening me to.
But that was, when she asked for 2,000 a month, that was
Which,
August or September, when we
Yeah.
first got to Minnesota.
and then you paid whatever you could.
Yes. But yeah, up to New Hampshire, up to now. Once I got to New Hampshire, then she got very aggressive about how she was going to keep Veilen in Minnesota unless I started paying her money. And she got into a whole thing, and it got really bad when we had a phone call to where she was yelling that she was going to have me arrested, and she was just straight up lying about it. I don't know. Yeah, I wait on that, but because I would like to remember exactly what our phone call was before we started guessing. But anyways, she was basically threatening to like put me in prison and take the kids away and all this stuff, and I did not bite. I just was saying I'm not gonna play these games. And the conversation just ended. And I was reaching out to her family. I was talking to her. I guess a little bit more details. Her dad is her adopted dad, and he's in a different relationship, and then her mom is in a different relationship. But I kept in touch with both of them, and this is something I did the entire time. So these past year, really, I've been in contact with both of them, both families, trying to talk everything out, because not to talk to her mom. However, I did reach out to her mom after she like threatened to arrest me and stuff, and take me physically. But I'd also been talking to her dad about it. But she doesn't tell anyone anything. So even when her dad tried to, he went to her where she was staying, the house that she was staying. And I was basically just trying to be like, trying to ask him, hey, can you check on Veilen? Because I wasn't seeing Veilen. So basically like, hey, is Veilen okay? And he went over there, and apparently Veilen was just sleeping, and that he didn't ask to see Veilen. And then he just didn't push it either, because she wouldn't tell him anything. And he didn't push the subject, so he, and this is in text, but he just basically texted back to me saying, like, yeah, she just doesn't tell me anything. So he's like, so he just texted me, hey, I went over there, Veilen was asleep, so we didn't see her. And then I was basically saying, oh, so she just, like, she didn't say anything, but like nothing was happening. Like she did just have this explosive argument. And he just said, no. And I'm not gonna, obviously, and the text will show what exactly his words were, but he basically just said, if she doesn't tell me anything. But after I had reached back out to my Minnesota lawyer, because I was really afraid that something would start, that she would try to lie about something. I guess I'll say in general, well, again, I don't remember, like, don't quote me specifically on this, but where it would, the big thing that she was lying about on our phone call was that I had taken Elowen to New Hampshire without her permission, which is not true whatsoever. We didn't actually sign anything, which I actually did have a conversation with her about it, and I had talked to some other people, because obviously that would help. But I also felt like so many people knew the situation. There was so many people that we had been talking to, and again, her dad was at this meeting that we had in October where we were kind of talking about this, and she hadn't agreed to it and everything. So I felt like that, even without any sort of written thing, that just wouldn't hold up in court. But anyways, so, and now I forgot where I was originally at with that. With her.
It was just having the dad check on Veilen.
Yeah.
You got to think, I'm not sure when Caitlyn moves to New Hampshire or comes to New Hampshire, but that's pretty good.
Yeah. I was talking about to where I was reaching out to this same Minnesota attorney that I've been talking to previously. I reached out to her again and was saying, hey, I think like she's gonna try and pull something. Like, and this is where I was going, because I was afraid that she was gonna lie to police or whoever, and I was gonna have some like raid on the house randomly, which I would hope that no one would do, because you would do like some sort of due diligence instead of just like randomly taking someone's word and then coming to a house. But I did actually call the Berlin Police Department too, because my lawyers, I was asking again my lawyer, like, hey, should I like give the police a heads up and be like, yo, there's a civil thing going on and she's trying to make some stuff up. So I did actually call the Berlin Police Department. And
I'm just curious, it's not totally relevant, I'm just curious. So you come here on January 23rd. When did you call Berlin Police? Do you remember what month?
I don't, again,
I don't want to assume, but it sounds like it's after several months of making some payments and so forth. Is that accurate?
no, I mean, we've only been here for
Since
a
January?
month, yeah.
Yeah. Usually you don't remember what you called just to give them a hand.
Like 2 weeks ago, I don't know. Because all this stuff, like again, with the Berlin Police Department, like that, obviously the call logs, it's gonna have that. And I don't even know if you can get the actual voice calls.
No.
Okay, yeah. But you can at least see the call log that I did call the Berlin Police Department, whatever it was.
And all the text messages.
Yes. But anyways, but they said anyways, like, hey, we would get involved anyways. But anyways, whatever. But I talked to the lawyer, the big issue though was that I just didn't have money. And so the lawyer wanted a retainer, obviously, $4,000. And I was trying to figure out how to get $4,000. Because my thought was, okay, like this is gonna go to court, because if she's gonna refuse to bring Veilen here, like this is, or like whatever, and continually just make up these lies, like, I don't know, like she never gave me permission to take Ellen here. I was like, well, there's no shot, like I have to figure out how to get this retainer. But then, because the move, I had, like, I got a credit card to help with the move, and so my credit was dipping. And I tried to go to like the credit union right in Berlin, and I did apply there to try and get $4,000, and they actually denied me, and it was mainly just because of my income, because I couldn't show any income outside of the previous move. But they denied me, and I was like, really, I didn't want to sell my car. I do. My car's paid off, but I did not want to sell my car, so I was really trying to figure out like how to pay for some of this stuff outside of my car. But after having conversations with like getting back to her dad saying, oh, like she didn't say anything, she's like apparently everything's just fine. Then I texted her, so again, this is on the text, where I was like, I guess part of her argument to where, again, to what this big one, to where she was like threatening to arrest me or whatever, to where she was asking for more money, but part of that too was that she wanted to put both the kids on her taxes. And all I said, and that sucks that you can't get the voice calls, but hopefully over time my word will hold some weight. But I forgot what I was saying. The voice call.
Yeah, I think she was,
Oh, yeah, to where she wanted to put both the kids on her taxes. And I was thinking about it for a minute, and again, like I will say, I was not biting on her, like overly aggressive, like I'm gonna arrest you. I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm not playing these games. But basically what she said on, I'm gonna, because that's how definitely she put it, she's going to put the kids on her taxes. That made me second guess because I wasn't sure. If there was something like, does that would that give leverage in like custody or something like that? So on the phone call, I literally just said, I didn't even say no. I just said, well, let me get back to you because I'm not sure. Like, I openly said, fine, you can claim Veilen, but like Evelyn's with me right now. She was like, you left her in Nevada. Like I had her most of the time in Minnesota. So my initial thought was, well, if there's something like custody-wise, I don't want to agree to anything right now. And so I literally just said, well, let me look into it. But anyways, obviously I'm she don't like that. But now going back to after I had heard her dad telling me, oh, like she was acting like nothing different had been happening. Then I texted her saying, will you bring Veilen out here if I just agree to you putting Element and Veilen on your taxes? And she just simply put yes. And so then I was like, okay. So she agreed to do it. By the way, I did pay for her plane ticket. That's probably, she bought, this is probably an important part of it, she bought the plane ticket already. She did. And then I Venmoed her the amount. So she texted me like the receipt when I Venmoed her the amount for the ticket. So that obviously that would be another part of like evidence of how like I wasn't like coercing her to do this. Like she did this stuff and then so it wasn't like, well, whatever.
Was it a round trip? I'm just curious.
Yes.
So she was planning on to go back?
Yes. And yes, that is important. And well, obviously.
For both?
You can, what's that?
For both her and Veilen, round trip?
Well, I think because she's one, she doesn't need a ticket.
Okay.
Just
Yeah,
right on that.
I always forget that too, because it's, but anyway. Okay.
So yeah. But anyways, so yeah, and again, this is all in texts. I texted her that, and this was after like a week of no contact. I basically just texted her, hey, will you still bring Veilen out here if you, or if I say yes to you putting both the kids on your taxes? And she just, one word, yes. So I said, okay, and then we continued to try and plan. And this was another text that is going to be very relevant, but, and yet, actually, I can't remember what she had texted previously. It'd be kind of useful to have this stuff, but somehow the conversation, the text conversation, got into like what were her plans of being here, like what was she trying to do, and I texted something along the lines of, I'm assuming that you're going to want to stay at the house for at least a few days, and this was because I'm like, well, why would you come here and not want to see like Element or whatever, and she then texted, no, I don't want to, and then again, you can look at the text, so I'm going to refer to the text, so I'm not going to be, my memory isn't going to be perfect, but it was something along the lines of, no, I don't want to feel trapped there at your house, and so I just said, okay, because that made it super simple for me. Like, that means that all she wants to do is just drop off Veilen and leave. And I'm like, perfect. So then that was always the plan. Now, going forward to, I guess I'm going to 27th when she got here. 27th, Tuesday?
I can't look at my phone. Yeah, it's 28th, this is leap year, so 29th was Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I believe Tuesday was the 27th, which was when she flew in here. She was then texting me about how, and I don't know how much to actually talk about because I don't know what's even relevant or what even matters. But I'll say it just in my thought process is like everything is relevant. But anyways, she had texted, I think on the 27th or on the 26th, so Monday or Tuesday, about how she now had to pay for transportation and food and all this stuff, and so she wanted money. And this, again, this is in texts. So my response was just, well, I don't have money to send you, and my text was basically something along the lines of, I was trying to save a couple $100, I think I did say $200. I was trying to save $200 just for when Veilen got here, and so I could get her, like, whatever she needs. So as the house has floorboard heaters, and so stuff like, well, I probably need to get, like, a barrier for the floor heaters, so she can't get in front of it. It was, like, stuff like that, or, like, food for her. So I was like, well, I wanted to try and make sure that I had $200, and I was like, I can send you $100. If that will make a difference, I will send you $100. And she did say, okay, and so I sent her $100. And then, so I didn't hear anything on Tuesday, which I wasn't planning to, but then on Wednesday was supposed to be when we were meeting up for her to drop off Veilen. Brenda lives in Hampton, which was where, so Caitlyn flew into Boston. I'm assuming Brenda picked her up from the airport. I don't actually know. But I'm assuming she picked her up from the airport, Boston, and then brought her to Hampton. Again, I'm assuming she wasn't staying with Brenda. I shouldn't even say that. I don't even know if she was staying with Brenda. She might have been staying out in one of her properties, because I think she has like seeing the properties. So that's why I'm assuming she was staying at around the property. But anyway, so that's obviously that's like over 3 hours from Berlin, Hampton to Berlin. And so I was basically, and then again, this is all in text, I was basically saying like, well, okay, well, let's try and be in the middle, because I don't really want to drive 6 hours and whatever. So I basically picked a spot pretty much right in the middle. I don't even think it was like, is that Alcida?
Applebee?
Applebee?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, we agreed to meet at Harley Jack's.
We're a ways from there, but yeah, we can figure it out.
Yeah, it was just like it's not just a restaurant that was like right on 16.
Okay.
Because obviously that's what I was trying to be like, well, okay, let's try and meet somewhere in the middle, so it was like an hour and a half drive for both of us. So then, but I was texting her, like, trying to get her questions of like, well, okay, so Brenda's driving you there, and then she said that Brenda was just dropping her off, and then that made me text like, well, okay, and again, these are in the text, to where I then was asking like, well, okay, is she picking you up afterwards? And she just never responded to that. But I was just immediately confused. Like, is she just going to leave and then come back? Because that doesn't make any sense. Because, like, why would you leave, drive an hour and a half back to Hampton, and then what? Like, are we planning to be at the restaurant for like 5 hours? No. she never responded to that. I got there, she then texted that something had happened to the washer and dryer or something like that, and so they're like an hour late, which was fine. I was just there, we just were hanging out, Ella and I were just hanging out at that restaurant. Then she got dropped off. She called me to come outside when she got dropped off, so I never even saw Brenda. She just got dropped off, and I came out to the front of the restaurant. She had Veilen's, she had a couple bags of Veilen's stuff. And she said, hey, here's this stuff, like, basically saying she didn't want to bring it inside, so I should just take it and put it in the trunk. So that's what I did, just grab the stuff and put it in the trunk, and then we went inside and just ate. And obviously, I hadn't seen Veilen in like over a month at that point, and she had obviously not seen Ellen, and so we basically, there wasn't much conversation between us, between Caitlyn and I. It was more so like, you know, I'm just super excited to see Veilen, and that was just kind of, that was where my head was. And then, after a while, she started, which is something she does, because she doesn't want to talk to me, so she'll talk to our kids, like, with me there. And so she was like, hey, should I come to your house? Like, asking Ellen that. And immediately, I was like, and again, obviously, none of this would have happened if I followed my gut. But I immediately was like, this feels like a bad idea. Because this was never part of the plan. She specifically said she did not, and again, it's in the text, that she did not want to come to the house because she didn't want to feel trapped. But anyways, I immediately just, I was not happy about it. But, and I started asking, like, well, where's Brenda? Like, is she not coming back to pick you up? And she was just saying no. And I just decided, like, okay, if she just wants to come here, see the place, and then, like, stay the night, I guess, with the kids, fine. But she was not going to stay there any longer than that. So we went back, I drove her up to the place. Then everything was fine that night. I set up, because before my pods, the remainder of our stuff, I had in pods from Nevada. Before I had that shipped out, I got an air mattress for Ellen when I sleep on, so I had an air mattress. So that night, which would have been Wednesday night, then she stayed the night there, filled up that air mattress, and everything was fine. Again, we didn't talk much. It was just like, again, I was just happy to have Veilen there. And what I would assume is that she was happy to be with Ellen. The next day, though, I kept asking, and I should say this too, the previous night, when I was saying, like, basically whenever I was asking about, hey, like, is Brenda gonna come and get you, or like, what's the plan, she would never answer that question. And so that night, I didn't push it, because I really didn't want to. Because it's like, whatever, it's difficult to first just refusing to answer, like she wouldn't do anything. She would just go into the kids' room and just like play with the kids. And so I just feel like literally like standing at the door, like, is Brenda picking you up? Like, what are you doing? And she just wouldn't answer. And I was very calm the entire time, just every like 15 minutes, being like, hey, what's the plan? And eventually she just started saying that she wasn't going to leave. And then we got into a conversation of, no, you texted, you didn't even want to be here in the first place, and I don't want you here. I didn't plan for this. Like, we have, like, me and the kids, whatever. Like, we weren't planning on you even being here in the first place. Like, I don't want you here. And then she just said, no, I'm staying here, and I'm not leaving. And that went on the entire day of her refusing to leave, and as it escalated more and more, she started getting more and more aggressive about how, no, I'm going to take the kids away from you, I'm going to call the cops, I'm going to get you arrested, all this stuff. And then, obviously, as things got more and more aggressive, if you can tell by kind of my demeanor, I'm a very calm person. I think everyone, you can ask anyone, I'm a very calm person. It takes a lot to get me riled up. But that is the one thing, and there is definitely a lot more to my emotional attachment to the kids, but that is the one thing that does set me off, is like these continued threats of taking the kids away from me. And it was just getting to the point to where just the entire day of me trying to be like, you cannot be here, call Brenda. And I didn't have Brenda's number. And I was literally thinking that, like, I need to text someone to try and get Brenda's number so I can talk to her. Try and be like, hey, you need to come get her. But yeah, I didn't have her number, and it just didn't get to that. But, yeah, it just got to the point to where she kept doing that. I guess for what obviously we're all here about, there was probably a good half an hour up to where she grabbed Elowen. I was not letting Elowen go. I had taken Veilen and put her in her car seat and was like, no, we need to go. And I was like, I don't even care if Brenda comes here or not. Like, I will drive you 3 hours down to Hampton. I do not care, but we're gonna leave. We cannot be here anymore. And then again, it was just the progressive, like, whatever, her just again threatening to take the kids and saying that, yeah, she just wasn't gonna leave, and then she was gonna take Veilen and Ellen back to Minnesota, all this stuff. It just kind of hit a breaking point, and especially with her holding Elowen in her arms and not letting her go, because there were a couple times where I went up and I grabbed Elowen and was like, let go of Elowen. I will say I never, not that it even matters, but I'll just say I never like hit her or touched her or anything like that. Caitlyn. this, because it's, it was, I don't even know, I mean, I don't even know if it was like training or not, but it was definitely very deliberate and fast. It was like the line had been crossed and my mind was just like snapped. And my gun, so I guess I'll set the scene. I assume people have seen this scene. She was on the couch holding Ella and not letting her go. My gun was on my desk to the left. After a couple attempts of me trying to grab Veilen and Ellen, and her not letting go, it was very, very fast, very deliberate. I went, grabbed the gun. I'm someone who does not keep a round chambered, but it was just very quick. I just like grabbed it, chambered it, grabbed Ellen, pulled her back, and shot. It was very immediate. Obviously, what's big in my head is Ellen yelling. I really hope, and I don't think she saw anything. She definitely heard it, obviously, and I had conversations with her. She was complaining about her ears, that it was very loud, obviously. But when all that happened, which again, it happened super fast. I mean, it was like training to where it's just grabbed it, grabbed Ellen. And then right when I shot, it was just immediately, I grabbed Ellen and like ran out of the house. And just immediately ran out of the house and put her in the car. Veilen was already in another room. She was closer to the door in her car seat. And so immediately I go run and I put Ellen in the car. And if you saw the layout, there's garages in the back. My car was in one of the garages, but I ran and put her in and I backed the car out to the back door. And I sat for a minute, like talking to Ellen. And for one, I was making sure that nothing had happened to her. And I know her, she was just complaining like, loud. That's what she was saying, loud. And so I was trying to check though to make sure nothing else was going on. Like she didn't have any injuries or anything like that. She didn't. I couldn't really check her hearing, obviously. I mean, I'm sure it was super loud. But anyways, then at that point, it was just kind of like, well, now I'm screwed. To where I understood what had happened. I understood, and I still do. I understand the consequences. But anyways, in that moment, again, I'm just a very calm person, and actually I deal, like when I do my best is under stress, and so I felt like I had a very clear head, and I was like, well, So what I did was I went through the house, kind of grabbed clothes, some food, water, stuff like that, loaded up. Obviously, it's what's in my car right now. I loaded that up and left. I don't know time frame. I couldn't say how fast that was. Fairly fast. I got the kids in the car. We left. I drove for a little bit just to get out of the area because I figured someone heard something, maybe. But anyways, I just wanted to get out of the area and then just talk to Ellen. Because Veilen was fine, she didn't, like, she was in another room, but I had them just kind of sat with Ellen. I was kind of being like, kind of talking her through, like, what happened. I was trying to ask her, like, hey, what happened? What did you see? And for her, she was just saying it was loud. And she wasn't saying anything else. And so that was kind of my biggest thing of like, I just really hope she didn't actually see me. And there was just a loud noise. And she just, like, because of that, she just closed her eyes or whatever. And I was just doing this. That's my hope. And it seems like that's all it was. I still hope that that's obviously all it was. She was good though. So anyways, I checked on her after driving a little bit, just basically out of Berlin. And then I was just kind of trying to plan what I was going to do. Because kind of immediately I kind of knew what was going to happen. Like, it doesn't matter. I understand that it doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter if she was threatening, whatever. I fully understand the consequences and what that means. And I kind of immediately was thinking, well, okay, at some point, I'm just going to turn myself in. But I don't know when I'm going to see the kids again, so I'm going to spend some time with them. So I drove, before anything else, I was kind of trying to think in my head, and I drove to Concord. Once I got to Concord, then I kind of sat with Ellen and Veilen again, and at that point, they were both good, and they're happy. I hope that there's no issues with this. And there really shouldn't be. Anyway, whatever. I'm getting ahead of myself. When we got to Concord, I was kind of, again, I sat down with the kids and I was like, in the car, obviously. We were kind of all sitting in the front. And they were all better. They were both better. Like Ellen wasn't crying. She was good. She seemed happy again. And for my own, for my own, like, hey, I just want to record something while we're here. So I did take out my phone, and I just recorded us. Basically, I was just saying, I love you to the kids. And Ellen said it back, and she was saying it to Veilen. And basically, I got the recording. And I decided I'm going to tell someone, because there maybe is a possibility that no one heard anything at the house, or nothing had happened, or like, yeah, like no one had heard anything or whatever. But anyways, I decided I was going to call my mom. And so I sent her the video of me and the girls in the car. And then I immediately called and told her what had happened. She was obviously distraught. The conversation didn't go very long because I didn't want it to. Obviously, as a mom she's trying to be supportive, but there's not. Obviously, there's whatever. Anyways, but I basically said, "Hey, you should probably call the cops." And especially too because I didn't want to call her and say, and for her to like somehow be complicit of like me calling her and then her not calling the cops. So which is my point of when I asked you earlier of how did they know? Because I was wondering if it was my mom.
There is a note that you called somebody in Minnesota, but other thing. So it's just whatever our dispatchers are putting in. So there is a note that you called somebody, but I'd have to talk to somebody that has a little bit more. It's probably a safer solution.
So that was basically what I said, and then I said, from here on out though, I'm gonna go dark because I'm turning off my phone, and I just want, and I told her this. I was like, I'm gonna turn myself in, but I want some time with the kids before I do it. And then that's when I hung up and then turned my phone off. I ended up driving to, I don't know where in New York. I was getting close to New York City, west. I don't remember. I don't really know New York, but it was like west of New York City, maybe northwest. But and I guess there is stuff going on in between too, like just making random stops or whatever, and just like if the kids were awake, like hanging out with them. I got down to New York and then just kind of laid in the backseat with the kids for a minute. Got like a couple hours of sleep. The kids have been, they were sleeping on and off through the whole thing, but they were sleeping good. But I mean, I'll just lay in the back and slept for a couple hours, and then woke up, and at that point, that was kind of when I was deciding, because my initial thought was, oh, I'll just surrender. I just ran the police department. But then I kind of decided, you know what, I should probably do it in New Hampshire instead of just random, like whatever, New York or whatever. So then I started heading back. And by the time I was getting near, my decision was, well, okay, I know that I'm going through Keene. So my plan was to go back to Concord, which was where I originally stopped and made that call. And so I was like, I guess I'll just go to Concord and just for a minute. But I was like, I do want And I was even envisioning this. I was like, you know what's gonna happen? I bet we're gonna stop at a restaurant, sit down and eat, and then the cops are gonna like raid the restaurant. I had that already in my head, but anyways, as we were driving through Keene, I was like, well, okay, well, let's see what's going on next. And I kind of mentioned this, but as I was driving through Keene, I saw the Chili's right there, and then saw the police department, and I was like, well, they're probably like eating right there, and they're probably just sitting right there. So I just kept driving, and then I saw the Applebee's, and was like, well, I guess I can see if Applebee's is open, and then turned the corner, and like I wasn't even paying attention because I was just trying to see if the Applebee's was open. So I had pulled into the Applebee's and was trying to see their hours open sign. And so I pulled up to the hours open sign and was trying to like look to see what it was. And then I see a cop pull up behind me. And I was like, wow. I was really not expecting it because I'm like, God, you guys are like chilling at Applebee's, okay. But I pulled up. Then there was parking spots kind of right in front of me, so I pulled up in the parking spot, and I was like, well, and the officer didn't do anything. I was assuming he was like trying to verify like a license plate or something like that, but he didn't do anything at first. But I was like, my immediate reaction was he was just pulling me over just randomly for something. But then I was like, well, he's gonna run my plates, and there's probably something out there, so something's gonna happen. So I immediately, and the girls were both asleep in the back seat, and so I immediately was just like, fuck, like I'm not even gonna get in the hood. And I wanted to, but I was like, I can't move because this was the exact situation I didn't want to be in. Because I didn't want something crazy to happen. Like I didn't want whatever, someone shooting or something happening with the kids right there. And so, basically I just sat there and I turned and I was like trying to talk to Ellen. But then yeah, immediately came out, like obviously gunpoint at me, yelling at me, putting my hands up, and I mean obviously I wasn't gonna fight or anything. It just really sucked that I just couldn't even like hug the kids. So that was like the big thing that was just in my head. But yeah, and then obviously the situation happened. I just honestly I directed me back and I was just yelling, hey, there's kids in the car. Just trying to make sure, like, just making sure there's kids in the car. Like, I'm surrendering, like, don't get crazy. Obviously,
Well, Dustin, I think you covered pretty much everything. Not quite to the point where I don't have questions. I do have a few kind of like, just kind of curious questions and stuff like that to clean up. More or less like timeline. So, you talked about Caitlyn flying in on the 27th. You didn't really talk or see her until the 28th. I was wondering what time you got to the restaurant hospital, and she might have got to the restaurant hospital.
Again, you can verify through text because they are in text. I probably got there like 4:30. And again, the text was saying what the restaurant was too. But I think it was called Harley Jack's. But anyways, I got there right around 4:30. I don't know exactly what time she got there, but she called when she got there, and she called and just said, "Hey, come out," because she had that suitcase for
Moves in between 5 and 6.
So probably, well, yeah, I was gonna say probably somewhere around 5:30.
What time do you think you got back to your apartment? There's an apartment house, I don't know.
It's it's a large house that has apartments. So I don't know if you saw it specifically, but, so I just had the first floor of this house that has 3 floors.
What time do you think you got back?
That one I have no idea, because we were at the restaurant for a bit. I have no idea. And that one, and I don't even know, I don't think anyone was texting or anything. Well, actually, I was home at this point, so this was a text that went out that night. And I wish I could remember what I said. I just look at the text, but it was from my mom, and it was something like, "Hey, is everything okay?" And I think I wrote something like, I don't even know what I wrote. I was saying something about, like, how Caitlyn was at the house. And I think my mom was asking again, like, "Hey, is everything okay?" And I don't think I actually responded to that one, though. But obviously, she knew, Caitlyn's at the house, what happened? But, so if, to verify, timeline,
Check the message.
when my mom texted, or when I responded, is actually probably the better way. When I responded, we were home. We were at the
What time's Element's bedtime in the morning?
she's, I guess you could say 9 or 10. But for me, I'm up late. So I'm up. It depends. Like this past week, I was up till 2 a.m. Pretty much every night. But she was pretty good. I say that just because Ellen, a lot of the times, if I'm not in bed, she doesn't want to go to bed. So she tries to hang out, but when she understands trying to work on stuff that, this past week, she was really good at just being like, "I'm gonna go to bed now," and just goes to bed.
What were the sleep arrangements? I know you said Caitlyn was on an air mattress.
Yes.
What room was that?
So, if you know the layout of the house, I had turned the living room into my room. And there, probably why I was doing these things is irrelevant, but I turned the living room into my room, and the dining room was turned into the living room. And both of those there's glass doors that shut to separate the 2 rooms, but I just had it open all the time. And so, when you're asking the sleeping arrangements, my bed is right there in that living room, center. And then I set up the air mattress basically right in the doorway between the living room and my bedroom.
4 kids.
Yes. And so she was right there, and then, what ended up happening was then Veilen slept with me, and for the most part, Ellen slept with her.
Okay. The girls have does Element have her own bedroom?
She does. So I had set up the girls' room, which you'll obviously know. Look at the house, but I'd set up the girls' room, but they've never we tried it a little bit to get Ellen to sleep in her own bed, but she never liked to, and neither one of us ever had a problem with her sleeping with us, and so Ellen has always just slept with us. So when Ellen and I have been here, she always just slept in my bed. I had got her accepted into the Head Start preschool in Berlin. But right now, they're on like a break, so I think they were starting up like the 5th. Sorry, not 5th. Yeah, I think it's the 5th Tuesday.
So then Thursday morning, you guys get up at some point. So I had a couple of questions about that. As far as, I guess basically, maybe it makes sense to ask first what time you actually shot Keene. Was it nighttime?
It was definitely night. I couldn't tell you.
How about like phone calls and stuff around that time? Nothing, so you got 2 moms.
I didn't.
At nighttime.
I don't know what her text or whatever. Because I obviously kept saying like, hey, like call Brenda, text Brenda, like. And so she was doing something on her phone, whether they're text or what.
Okay, so she might have been texting.
She might have been texting. I have no idea what she was doing, but I have no idea what her text would have been if she was texting or her phone calls. I don't know.
One of the things you said, so two questions. You said that you were not physical with Keene at all. How about the opposite? How about her physical with you?
I guess I haven't thought about it. I wouldn't. Don't quote me, but right now I'm going to say I do not recall. And I'm only saying that because it probably wouldn't really register if she did ever hit me. I can say even if she did, it would have been like very rarely.
Fair to say.
To where I wouldn't even remember it.
Right.
But I'm just saying that because I probably wouldn't even register it. Look, I'm thinking of an event in my head to where I don't even remember what was going on. I remember this was in Nevada, but she was really angry about something, and I don't remember what it was.
I haven't seen her that Caitlyn. Is she taller than you, bigger than
No,
you, shorter than you?
she's very small, 5 foot.
Would it be fair to say that you, if she did like physically assault you, like, obviously you don't recall any injuries, but any major type injuries? Alright. One of the things you mentioned was that she was getting aggressive on the 29th, so you were asking her about Brenda coming to pick her up. She really wasn't answering that question most of the day. She finally was at the point where she's saying she's not going to leave, and then and this is one of the things that kind of popped out of my head, is that she's now saying that she's making those threats about taking the kids away. So the threatening to take the kids away, for the most part, was over the phone. Now she's threatening to take the kids away in person.
Yes.
And you said she grabbed Eloise. I was just wondering if you could describe like how she's holding Eloise. I messed up on the other side. Eloise.
How she was holding her. So, like full bear hug. So definitely 2 hands bear hug. Which was again why, which I said a couple times, more than a couple times. I don't know, I couldn't even say how many times. More than a couple times. I had, and obviously I couldn't really pull that much because obviously I didn't have an element. There's a couple times I did try to grab an element. And I was never grabbing Caitlyn, but I did grab Elowen and try and pull Elowen away. But she was full, bear hugs Elowen.
Was Elowen, would you say, was Elowen upset, crying, or was she comfortable?
She was crying.
So she's holding her forcefully enough to cause her to cry, or was she crying because you guys were?
You could probably say both. Because, she's very smart. She knows, like when, yeah, like when, whatever, when, like, in that situation, when, and you know, I should say this for the record too. During that entire conversation, you know, I might have yelled once, but I think that entire night, I probably only yelled once. But anyways, I was gonna say, Elwin knows when something's going on. Yeah, so it was probably a combination of both of this.
You did say that Caitlyn was becoming aggressive, and this obviously holding Elwin is a step towards that. She's threatening to take the kids away, like threatening you with calling the police, threatening to take the kids away. She threatened to hurt Elwin at that point, or harm, or do with any kind of threat to physically hurt Elwin or you. Is it safe to say that, or fair to say that she's not armed with anything, right, at this point? Or that she's holding Elwin?
No. I will say I'm very aware of the surroundings. Obviously, I knew my gun was right there.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple knives that are like pocket knives.
Where do you normally keep that for her?
On me. Pretty much all the time. Since I've been in Hampshire, so for the past month.
In a holster, or?
I guess it depends on what I'm doing. Like, if I'm in the car, I guess you would probably ask about the house. I do have a little like handgun safe that's up on, it's still there. It's up on the safe. It's in a closet in the front room. I'm pretty sure it's still there. It should still be there. It's in the front room closet, which is where I was storing stuff on the top shelf. So like, no, I'm gonna guess that's what you're referring to. Could my kids get to it?
No, that's in the back of my head, but that's not really what I'm referring to. I was just curious if it was in a holster on the desk or if it was just on the desk.
At that moment, it was just on the desk.
Any other firearms in the house? Do you want to? And that, you said, was on the desk. I was curious about your training a little bit. Right? When you were in the Marine Corps, I'm assuming your disability has something to do with, it's through the VA, so it's PTSD or something similar. I'm a veteran too, so I'm uncomfortable talking about it.
Yeah, well, that's a question I'm hesitant to answer.
Okay. How about
But,
you?
yeah, if you're asking about training,
Yeah.
because, this is, like, I see where this is gonna come into play. But yes, I am in the Marine Corps right away. Right boot camp, I was battalion high shooter. PMI, the coach, he gave me a jacket because he had never coached anyone who shot as high as me. And immediately I got tagged to become a combat marksmanship coach, which then he did my coach's course. I got Top Gun in the coach's course, doing out like the recon, special forces guys. So that was something I had like a lot of pride in my Marine Corps, even more so than my actual job, was just my shooting prowess. But I can see where this is going of like, could it be that I'm endangering Elwin by what I did? And I would very much say no.
marksman of some sort of competition. So fair to say you know you weren't endangering them.
Yes.
Because you're that, like, you know where that barrel of that gun was at. Where was
I'm
that?
very, like, obviously that's, and again, like I said, when everything was so fast, it really was like training, just obviously, you know, it was instant, like everything happened probably in a couple seconds of me like grabbing the cockpit. Yeah. Like, it was very fast, but it was, I guess, what were you asking now?
So I want to just, now I have another question. Training you're talking about is marksmanship training, not like specifically hostage or anything like that. Because that's what was my first thought, was you're trying to remove Veilen from a harmful situation.
Yes.
So do you have training like hostage type scenarios? Or is this more of a marksman training that you're referring to?
Well, it would be just from our, well, we would have done that in the coach's course as well. Yes.
You know exactly, I don't want to put words in your mouth and I don't want to assume anything, but I'm guessing, is it fair to say you know exactly where you saw the truck Caitlyn?
I have a very good idea, yes.
Where was that?
I'm
There's a couple
trying to, yeah, I'm trying to decide if this is a trap
So,
question.
no, it's not, I'm just like, I just want to, it's hard to say you're an expert marksman and that everyone is safe and not know where that round went. So that's why I'm asking.
Well, yeah, yes. It, straight through, I don't know exactly where it hit. I mean, her hair is covering, but side of the head, through the other side of it.
And you're right-handed? You fire with your right hand? What type of caliber was the gun?
I don't know.
Where is it now?
It was in the front, the driver's side door.
Car?
Yeah.
Any other guns in the car? Keene
I did-
thought there was, sorry.
No, there's no other guns in there. And I did tell them though, like immediately, like when they were getting me, I was saying, yo, there's, and this was, I was already out of the car at this point, but I was saying, hey, there's a pistol in the driver's side door with a round chamber. Just because and they were, I will say, they were good on that, of saying like, hey, just don't even touch the door, because the kids were right there too, and that was the point I was trying to make. It was like, yeah, like, before anything else, like, hey, there's a gun chamber right there.
Do you have any injuries on you at all, or anything? You know, I see like the handcuff obviously like dug in a little bit. Nothing on you. You're not harmed. You said both girls, as far as you know, were harmed and allowed. We've talked.
I was gonna say, no, I was gonna say, because which again is probably relevant, I was continually trying to, like, as we were just throughout the day, morning, night, whatever, I was trying to check, like, to make sure that Ellen's hearing was fine, and obviously I don't have any tools or anything like that. But it seemed like it was fine. She wasn't complaining about it, and she said it was fine. So, yeah.
Do you have any?
Yeah, I guess so. Obviously, you've had a super difficult past year, probably. You've done everything you can as a dad, and everything's been against you. You know, she's friendly to keep the kids apart because you won't you won't let her put them on your taxes. Stuff like that doesn't make sense. Obviously, you have to put up with it because of your concerns for the kids. I know you said you wished you stayed in Nevada in the first place because things were good there. You had this feeling in your gut.
And sorry, I'll clarify with Nevada. I do really love Nevada.
Yeah.
It's not that I regret moving to New Hampshire, because for the month I've been here, I like it. Obviously, things are different now, but my regret with Nevada was leaving to follow Caitlyn to Minnesota. Because if I had talked to my Nevada lawyer before I left, then they would have said, oh, it's very simple. She took the kid out of state.
File your paperwork or whatever you have to do.
Yeah, like, very easy, the kid's going back to Nevada. And so that, and I hadn't talked to a lawyer before, so specifically when I say I regret leaving Nevada, it was specifically for that reason.
Okay.
I wish once she left, that I was just like, well, no, you left, you screwed up everything, like, nope, bring the kid back here. I'm staying in Nevada.
And then
So that was my regret.
And then you follow her in Minnesota. Obviously, you want to keep the kids together. You're doing this long commute from northern Minnesota to southern Minnesota twice a week for the kids and with the kids. So you're making all the sacrifice. You finally get to New Hampshire, things are working out or getting better. You have your own place where it's peaceful. And then she comes to meet you with the younger kid. You're at the restaurant, and she wants to come to your house. And you just have that feeling, like the pit of your gut, like, this is not going to end well. You know, she'd already threatened to make false accusations when she wasn't even with the older kid. Now she's in access to both of them. She comes over to your house. She threatens to have you arrested and stuff. And obviously, you had that feeling in your stomach that you didn't want her in there in the first place. Things were not going to go well. She was going to make it worse and worse. I know you had that, we'll call it a regret, I guess, of, like, this isn't going to end well when you guys leave that restaurant in Ossipee to head back to your place. And do you have any other regrets or things you just wish, like in the whole grand scheme of things, if things went differently?
What do you get, man?
Just like obviously there's such a long buildup of you trying to make it work for the kids and nothing seemed to go your way.
And there is a lot. I don't know if I would phrase it like that though.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong.
I do want to say this, that from every point of our relationship, her biggest issue was never communicating, which she never does to anyone, like her own family. Like I'm the one talking to her family, and she doesn't even talk to her own family. So it's like, I'm super big on communication, and she never wanted to talk at all, but then two, of how she would never compromise on anything. And so like, even small stuff of like, as an example, so like whatever, everyone's been in a relationship, so
Yeah.
everyone should know what I'm talking about when it's like these small stuff like that. But it's like all these small things that just like add up. And I always felt like in my head for years, it was always like, and again, I said this at the very beginning, I am so much into like for a nuclear family to raise kids. So I'm like, the mom and the dad have to be present
Yep.
to have a good child, to raise a child.
Yep.
And so this comes into like all of my decisions of like, suck up my pride, whatever, fine. She doesn't want to use the detergent, then I'll make sure our clothes are separate, all of our stuff is separate, I have my stuff, like my whatever shirts that I want to do this. And like, I couldn't wash the kids' clothes either, the kids' clothes had to be a thing, but anyways. But it was just like, okay, for the kids. And again, it was like when she took Veilen to Minnesota, and with talking to my parents and her parents, and I was just like, okay, fine, I'll just do it for the kids. And yeah, so that it's, I guess, I'm trying to remember what word or what phrase you were using specifically.
I don't know if you remember regret. I mentioned that earlier, just kind of like
Right.
things you could maybe wish had gone differently or whatever. It sounds like you
I
did.
mean, immediately, like, again, my immediate regret is leaving Nevada.
Yep.
Because I should have just stayed there, got the lawyer, and then the kid would have been back, and then obviously that brings up that whole situation of the mom took the kid out of state.
Yeah.
Like, that looks terrible, and we probably would have just right then and there, gone through like a custody case.
Yep.
And it would have, at the very least, it would have benefited me.
Yep.
Whether it was split or whatever, obviously, it doesn't really matter, but obviously, it would have looked a lot better on my part. And so that was obviously like my first big regret. I don't know, I feel like you're trying to get something out.
I'm just trying to look at the big. Obviously, you've only been in New Hampshire for a little while. There's a whole
Yes.
big picture. We kind of covered most of it, but there's a huge lead up to this. And it
Yes.
sounds like to me, I'm sure to Mike too, you did almost everything you could, and it was just never good enough. You couldn't send, your money wasn't enough. You followed them to Minnesota, but things don't work out there. It sounds like you did everything, the best of your ability for the kids. Is obviously things didn't turn out, I'm sure in New Hampshire like you wanted them to, but.
It feels like you're like buttering me up.
See it as you see fit, yeah.
Now I have a question. Good.
Well, I was gonna say, I don't know if you're getting at, like, do I regret New Hampshire? Which, no. I think I would have really liked it here. And again, I was getting everything set up. I mean, because this is gonna come up, obviously, as the case happens. But I don't even know if I probably shouldn't even talk about that.
Let me ask you this.
Never mind. I don't regret New Hampshire. And again, I had everything. I mean, Ellen and I, we were having a great time. We had so much, immediately, I moved here, we have people helping us move, she's meeting friends here, we got into the Head Start program,
Yep.
I got my, immediately got my, which my driver's license was sort of temporary one, they haven't been sent the new one yet. But yeah, I got, obviously, I will switch over to all the registration stuff, just fully getting set up here, and and there might actually be texts on this. I'm not sure if it was just conversations with my mom or if there were texts. But there might be texts, there are definitely conversations with my mom of just saying I don't want to call this a success until Veilen is here and Caitlyn is gone. And I remember at the very least having those conversations, but there might actually be text too, because we would have conversations of oh, she's threatening this and she's not going to bring Veilen now, and now
Yeah.
I'm saying, okay, fine, put them on your taxes. Are you going to bring them here? And then yes. And it was I was always so I'm not calling this a victory until this is done. And obviously it was not.
Yes, it is. I'm now having a question to ask. But I'll do two quick questions, and I think we're pretty much done. So, just kind of listening to the last couple minutes of the conversation, I have to ask now, it was never your intent for Caitlyn to come here and kill her. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
And this was,
Because even the way you just mentioned the text message to your mom, I realize what you're saying, but at the same time listening to it, it's making me, now I have to ask that question.
but yes, without a doubt, never any intention to ever do anything like that, absolutely. absolutely not.
And the other thing I do, and being a military veteran myself, or combat veteran myself, the other thing I do is I put myself in your head, and as I'm listening to you talk, the other question I have to ask is, could you have done anything in that moment where you're reaching for that gun, and from the moment you grab the gun to the moment you pull the trigger, could you, in your mind, have done anything differently to prevent racking around and pulling the trigger? Or is it just set in motion and done? Nothing you could do?
It was, from the moment that it was like, nope. Even like, just even before I grabbed it, it was like, nope, and then, again, it was like, it was almost like, again, to what I'm saying, it's like your training coming out. It was muscle memory, just, not even in it, oh, well, it's, whatever, it's dumb to even say that, because it's not like that's ever happened there before, but anyways, yeah,
If you could do anything differently in the last 24 hours, what would you have done differently?
not let her go to the house. Then it's, you're getting into hypotheticals of, but then probably this, there would have been situations then like at the restaurant, and like, or whatever else, outside the restaurant, or like, again, because she very clearly, and I guess I didn't even say this, she very clearly had, no I did, I guess I did, anyways, she very clearly had no intention for Brenda to pick her back up from the restaurant. She very clearly had intended to come back to my place without telling me.
Which is why
And so that obviously factored in to where I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? So I have to drive her to Hampton, so I have to drive her an hour and a half to Hampton, and then drive 3 hours back to my place, and and I get, you know what, because I have to call it out, like, are you getting at, do I regret shooting her?
Well, this is your opportunity to say if you do or not. So if you want to address that too, yeah, please do.
I don't know if I want to.
You knew she was, based on your training and everything else in your marksmanship, you knew she was dead pretty instantly, I would imagine.
For sure.
So I'm done with questions. I'm gonna have to look at the time, but I want to end the recording. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Well, I do want to say I'm not answering that last question of do I regret that. For either answer, it just feels like that's almost like that's like a trap question. I don't know, like it's almost like that's like a trap question. I don't know, like it's
your choice to answer or not. I'm not trying to treat you pretty fairly to let you answer whether you want to answer or don't want to answer. And if you don't want to answer it, please don't feel like we're trying to get something out of you that you don't want to give us.
I guess just to end it, obviously all, you know what, if I could talk more, I'll say it. I have a very, I'll say this because you asked this already, and this is probably, okay. Answer that, and you can answer this first. Can you even look up what my disability is? Can that even get brought up on court?
there's a way to do it, and it has to be, it has to be in the middle of the situation. So in this particular case, I think it would have already had been done. So it has to be what's called exigency. And by that, I mean like something like heat of the moment type thing, hot pursuit type thing. And there's a way to call, not the VA, but there's some, our intelligence people can call and get stuff with certain exigency. If that hasn't already happened, then there's ways to do it with search warrants and stuff too, but I'm sure it will come up one way or another.
And I don't even know if it even matters. Well, anyways, whatever. I was gonna say, not even with that. I was just gonna say that starting back either 2016 or 2017, I started going into some very severe depression, and I did have a failed suicide attempt. This was in Nevada. This was before I got a kid. So there was a lot of me trying to find. I don't need to go into the whole thing, but it was a lot of me like what is the point? There's no purpose for me to live anymore. And that was kind of where I was at when I was in this severe depression, and that's when this all happened. But after that happened, then my parents took me in to their place back in Minnesota. And that is when I met Caitlyn. And then when we had our first kid, Ellen, that was when it really was like, this is it. Like this is why I'm here now. And it was, okay. I don't even know. I'm debating whether I even want to say this. Because I think veterans, when you talk to veterans, they understand this. I'll just give this caveat and say it, because I feel like if you're a veteran, you understand this. But I remember our very first Christmas, to where Ellen had, she had just turned 1. And actually, this reminds me, because this brings something up about Caitlyn. And we could honestly go down this whole road that I don't think Caitlyn cares about the kids. And that's a whole other can of worms that can be opened up. But Ellen's very first Christmas, Caitlyn left and went back to Minnesota. So it was just me and Ellen. And then, so obviously, but I remember at the time, I was still like, I won't get into details, but some financial stuff came up, and I was struggling with money again. And so that Christmas, I couldn't really get Ellen anything. And so I took pictures, and there's pictures of me and Ellen when she's, whatever, it was her first Christmas, and she's like opening up, well, I think she had like 2 toys, I got her like 2 toys, and we had just this little Christmas tree. Ellen was there, and she was so happy. That was like my life turning point to where those thoughts ended permanently, and everything was just for her. It was like that was, and I said this at the beginning, to where I have such a strong connection with Ellen just from like that moment, that was the turning point moment in my life. That I was like, those thoughts are just gone now, forever, and they aren't. They are forever gone. Even like again now, it's like there was no. It never even came into my head that I would try to kill myself. Like that didn't even be a possibility. And
Priorities change. Was my commanders used to always throw something like that. Priorities change, and it actually applies to pretty much everything, especially when you have kids.
So anyways, not that it even justifies anything, but it's like, she's just my everything.
I have no other questions for Sergeant McLaughlin.
Okay. Members of the jury, I realize that was a long video, but we'll take the mid-afternoon break now. It's currently 3:05. We'll resume in about, resume in 15.
My objection, or the defense's objection to the use of subtitles, and note the dozen or more errors that I saw during the review of the video with the subtitles. These are either errors from what you could audibly hear and what the subtitles said, differences between the subtitles and the corrected transcript, or both. And given the pacing, I can't tell you which, and I couldn't tell you that I got all of them, so these are just the ones I caught. And I'm just gonna note for the record, the errors in the subtitles. And again, I think our concern here is that the jury is going to rely on the subtitles. It's human nature. It's why I have subtitles on when I watch TV. It helps me process, rather than listening to the video, even with the limiting instruction. It's something our brains do automatically. It's not something we can control. And so, just for the record, error 1, page, this is what's been marked for ID as states 32, and I'm going by the page numbers at the top right. Page 14, line 9, it said looped in when it should have been moved in. Line 21, it said where when it should have been whether. Line 17, page 17, line 4, the H in DEBORAH was excluded. Page 24, line 2, mine when it should have been my. Page 25, line 1, the phrase hunter, fisherman was omitted. Line 9, like do you want a was omitted. Line 33, I believe it said will hire the place, when the corrected transcript and what you could audibly hear was I already had the place. Page 35, line 5, it said and da when it should have said and none of that. Page 46, line 14, And again, line 16, it should have said, I then Venmo'd, and it said, I mailed her. Page 50, line 4, it's said I was when it should have said us. Page 52, line 1, Sgt McLaughlin is misidentified as Detective Horton. Page 55, line 12, it said pulled when it should have said filled. Page 57, line 6, the word like was omitted. Page 58, line 4, end instead of I. Page 58, line 21 to 22, it said, I never like hit her or punched her or anything, when it should have said, I never like hit her or touched her or anything. Line 59, it said after a couple of times, or page 59, line 15, after a couple of times, when it should have said after a couple of attempts. Page 60, line 14, Sgt McLaughlin erroneously identified as Detective Horton, or vice versa. Line 61, it said check that instead of, or page 61, line 2, check that instead of check though. Page 61, line 6, I couldn't really check for her earring, when it should have said I couldn't really check for her hearing. Page 64, line 2, and 2 errors, and for my own, but it instead said, and from my own. Same page, line 9, maybe is, instead of maybe as. Page 68, line 8, omitted cause I was like. Page 76. This one was moving too quickly, and there was, for me to catch, but there was an error sometime around line 19 to 20, when some statements were omitted from the subtitles that were said audibly. Page 82, it looks like line 22, the speaker was misidentified. Of course, the error we've talked about previously, page 87, line 15, fair to say you weren't endangering Elwyn, is what the corrected transcript says. What Sgt McLaughlin said is what he said, but the subtitle said, fair to say you were endangering Elwyn. Page 95, line 16, the word I was omitted. Page 96, line 10, Detective Horton, I believe, said, correct me if I'm wrong, and that was omitted from the subtitles. Page 105, line 17, this is one that Sgt McLaughlin identified on direct. It said whacking the round, the subtitle did, when the actual correct statement was racking the round. Page 106 had multiple errors, line 2, to what I'm saying versus is what I'm saying. Omitted because, line 5, because it's not like that has even happened to me ever before. Line 14, the problem is versus but then probably there. Line 108, page 108, line 17, honestly was what the subtitle said, but the audio was clearly obviously. Page 112, line 18, speaker misidentified. And I think we ended there. And Judge, I think it's more about the overall quality of the information being presented to the jury. I think the most substantive error is the one we've already discussed at length. But I would say if those are what I can catch at a full speed, non-slowed down review, it's likely there are even more errors. And so I understand the jury has heard it. I'm just making my record about the impact that using the transcript has had on the jury. And renewing, noting our objection made multiple times prior to it being played. And that's all I have on that issue.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Duren, any comments?
Just that council has noted, as they've noted, most of these are minor errors. Different people hear different things, as is obvious. The transcript was provided to defense counsel before June of 2024. They chose to utilize this one in terms of their motions for redaction. In fact, the state had offered them the opportunity to reconsider that and utilize the edited, corrected version done by Detective McLaughlin. Defense chose not to. The state followed what the defense requested in terms of transcripts. These are minor. They've been corrected on examination. They've actually been notified, I believe, 3 times. The detective, as well as this court, have instructed the jury that the audio is what they should listen to because the transcript can show errors. Even the larger error or the error that defense counsel points out as being substantive was corrected on direct examination. Defense counsel is free to cross-examine. This was given to the jury and instructed by a limiting instruction that this was merely for a guide and that they were to rely on the audio for any differences. Your Honor, unlike defense counsel, I don't listen to subtitles because I don't trust them. In terms of on television, they're always wrong, and I'm sure defense counsel is aware of that as well. This was given to jurors as a guide. There were errors, but they were minor, except for the one. Defense counsel is free to question on cross-examination if they don't feel that the state addressed them appropriately on direct.
And just a couple of notes. I don't know why the state gave the jury evidence it doesn't trust, that it thinks is incorrect. It's not our burden to ensure that the evidence that the state is presenting is accurate. It's the state's burden. And we did not ask the state to use incorrect subtitles. We objected to the use of subtitles at all for this very reason.
Your Honor, that was a colloquial speak. The subtitles are done by somebody listening to a tape who was not involved. That's why it is sworn to. It is transcribed by a stenographer, and the state provided corrected information. This could have all been corrected had defense counsel raised these concerns prior to the transcripts being used. Your Honor, these are minor issues within this transcript, and the jury has been told that they need to rely on the audio. The audio is the evidence. This tape was provided for presentation purposes as an assistive device, not as evidence, and the court was very clear in its instruction.
Attorney Kettles, I note that you have not raised an objection relative to whether or not the state did not properly redact consistent with my order dated October 10, 2025. It does appear that the video that was played is consistent with my redactions relative to those portions of the transcript. I would note that I haven't heard any objection in that regard. And Attorney Duren, based upon your argument, is my understanding that the state's position is that with the exception of the were versus weren't endangering comment, my understanding is that the state's perception is that any perhaps incorrect word choice does not alter the sense of what is being said as part of the tape. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Satisfied with the record?
Yes, Your Honor.
All set? Okay, so any further, the court is denying any request for a further limited instruction. Again, the transcript in whatever form will not be going to the jury. That's number one. Number two, the version of the video that has been admitted as a full exhibit, that version does not have subtitles on it, and that version has been admitted as a full exhibit. So that version will be going to the jury. I've already instructed them that they are to consider the audio to be the primary evidence, and they are to rely upon that, and the jury is presumed to follow my instructions. So that is my ruling with respect to that. Satisfied with the record, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, jury. Thank you.
The County Superior Court is now in session. The Honorable Jonathan S. Brazel presiding.
Thank you. Please be seated. Detective Sergeant, you're still under oath, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sergeant, I'm going to ask you some questions about what Dustin told you,
Okay.
and a couple of questions about what you asked or said to Dustin. Dustin said, I can see where this is going, of like, could it be that I'm endangering Elowin by what I did? And I would very much say no.
That sounds correct.
And you responded, yeah, just to tighten that up a little bit more, you're an expert marksman of some sort in competition, so it's fair to say you know you weren't endangering Elowin.
Correct.
And in response to the question, you know you weren't endangering Elowin, Dustin said yes.
Correct.
And talking about Caitlyn, Dustin said there was probably a good half hour up to where she grabbed Elowin and was not letting Elowin go.
Yes.
We'll back up a little bit to the start of the interview. You read Dustin his Miranda rights?
Yes.
You told him he didn't have to answer your questions?
Yes.
You told him he had the right to speak to an attorney?
Yes.
Dustin told you he understood his rights?
Yes.
He told you he was willing to answer questions?
Yes.
He didn't have an attorney present when you asked him questions?
He did not.
He didn't ask to speak to an attorney before he answered your questions?
He did not.
He answered your questions?
He did.
Sometimes he volunteered information that hadn't been asked?
A lot of information.
And Dustin told you that he and Caitlyn had agreed to move to New Hampshire,
Yes.
that they agreed to this in July or August of 2023.
That's correct, yes.
He told you then Caitlyn sent all their stuff to Minnesota.
She ordered pods to send her stuff to Minnesota. I'm not clear if, because he also said that a lot of her stuff was left in Nevada, so I'm not clear. I think her intent was to send it to Minnesota. But I'm not clear on that totally.
Okay, thank you. And that whatever she did with the pods and the stuff, she did that without saying anything?
Dustin said the first he learned of it when the pods actually arrived, so yes.
Are you saying that he didn't say that that was without her saying anything?
My recollection is that he didn't know, so he didn't know, which I guess you could assume she didn't say anything, but he didn't know until the pods actually arrived that he didn't order. Or that she had ordered.
And he said that she took their 1-year-old without Dustin knowing?
Yes.
That Caitlyn took the stroller like she was going to the park?
Yes.
That several hours later, Caitlyn and the 1-year-old hadn't returned?
Correct.
That Dustin went to the park to look for them and they hadn't returned?
They were not at the park, yes.
And Dustin tried to call her, like, what is going on?
Correct.
And Caitlyn was at the airport,
That's what he said, yes.
bringing their 1-year-old to Minnesota.
Yes.
And Dustin then spoke to you about returning to Minnesota, and he said that eventually he and Caitlyn had a sit-down with the two of them and Caitlyn's dad.
Yes.
And Dustin suggested, can we just continue to move to New Hampshire?
Yes.
Caitlyn agreed,
That's what he said, yes.
and he said they agreed to stay in Minnesota until Veilen's birthday.
Veilen's birthday, Christmas, some of the holidays, yes, yes.
And that they would then continue on to New Hampshire.
I'm not clear, it's not clear to me if by they he meant himself and Elowin, sorry, or all four of them.
But he said part of the agreement was for Dustin to drive to New Hampshire with Elowin,
Yes,
and then the plan was for Caitlyn to fly out with Veilen.
yes,
He told you that Caitlyn kept asking for more and more money.
yes,
He told you that she kept threatening to take the kids away.
Correct. I'm not sure if that meant custodially through the courts or something else.
I'm not asking what it meant, I'm just asking what he said, right?
Yes.
Which is that Caitlyn kept threatening to take the kids away.
Yes.
And every month it was the same thing of her wanting more money with threats of taking the kids away.
That's accurate.
He said when Dustin and Elwyn got to New Hampshire, Caitlyn got more aggressive with her threats.
But yes, and more aggressive with asking for money.
Caitlyn was saying she was going to keep Veilen in Minnesota unless Dustin started paying her money.
That sounds correct.
They had a phone call where Caitlyn was yelling that she was going to have Dustin arrested.
I'm not sure about the yelling, but that sounds correct.
Would it refresh your recollection if I showed you the transcript? May I approach?
Certainly.
This is what's been marked for ID as States 32, number on the top, page 37. Right here, to where she was yelling that she was gonna have me arrested. So he told you that Caitlyn was yelling that she was going to have you arrested?
Yes, him arrested.
Have him arrested, yes, apologize. That she was threatening to put Dustin in prison and take the kids away?
Yes.
That Caitlyn was lying and saying he had taken Elwyn to New Hampshire without her permission?
Yes.
And Dustin said that after that phone call, he reached out to both of Caitlyn's parents.
Yes.
He was trying to get her family to help out.
Yes.
He reached out specifically to Caitlyn's mom after Caitlyn threatened to arrest him and take the kids away.
Yes.
He had also been talking to her dad about it.
Yes.
Dustin said he asked Caitlyn's dad to check on Veilen
Yes.
because Dustin wasn't seeing Veilen and wanted to make sure she was okay.
That's correct.
Dustin reached out to a Minnesota lawyer.
That's what he said, yes.
Dustin was afraid that Caitlyn was going to lie to the police and have some sort of raid on the house.
Yes,
Dustin told you he called the Berlin Police Department,
he did.
and he said the Berlin Police Department said they wouldn't get involved.
Something to that effect, yes.
I want to turn now to what Dustin said about the incident itself. He described Caitlyn refusing to leave.
Yes.
He said Caitlyn was getting more and more aggressive.
Yes.
He said Caitlyn told him she was going to take the kids away from him.
Yes.
Caitlyn told him she was going to call the cops and have him arrested.
Yes.
Caitlyn grabbed Elwyn and was not letting her go.
Yes.
She was again threatening to take the kids.
Yes.
Caitlyn was saying she was going to take Veilen and Elwyn back to Minnesota.
That's what he said, yes.
Dustin tried to grab Elwyn and be like, hey, let go of Elwyn.
Yes.
And Caitlyn just wouldn't let go.
It's my understanding.
Caitlyn had Elwyn in a full bear hug,
Bear hug, yes.
a two hands bear hug,
Yes,
and he made a motion to demonstrate.
he did.
Dustin tried to grab Elwyn a couple times,
Yes.
but he couldn't pull that much because he didn't want to hurt Elwyn.
Yes.
Elwyn was yelling.
I don't know if she was yelling or crying. If that's what the transcript says, then
And
yes.
It said both, right? He told you Elwyn was yelling and
Cor-
Elwyn was crying.
I recall crying.
He said that Caitlyn was holding Elwyn forcefully enough to cause her to cry.
I asked a question about that, and my question, I got kind of a combination of the two, forcibly enough and also the arguing.
And also the arguing, but both of those were causing her to cry.
Combination of the two, yes.
He said it was very, very fast, very deliberate.
The shooting,
Yes.
yes.
Very, very fast, very deliberate was the phrase.
Yes.
He said it was very quick.
Yes.
He said he grabbed the gun, chambered it, grabbed Elwyn, pulled her back, and shot.
Yes.
He said it was immediate.
Yes.
He said it happened super fast.
Yes.
He said right when I shot, it was immediately, I just grabbed Element.
That doesn't sound accurate.
That doesn't sound accurate?
No. I think there's more to that sentence. Grabbed Elowen and put her in the car.
All right. This, what's been marked for ID is states 32. This is that corrected transcript that you talked about, you reviewed, make sure it was accurate.
Okay.
And it says, and then right when I shot, it was
60.
60.
And
It
I
said,
object at this point, if she's using it to refresh recollection, this is not appropriate.
Sustained. There for the day. We'll resume at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Again, I remind you to not discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Don't conduct any research whatsoever about any matter you've heard relative to this trial or on any other subject that could impact your eventual determination of the issues at hand. If you do, again, I remind you there's a media presence, and I instruct you to avoid any media coverage of what's happening in the courtroom, and to go so far as to try to prevent any inadvertent exposure. With that, we'll see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you for your patience and your understanding.
All right.
Okay, court will be in recess. Thank you.